My family hid my pregnancy at 12, lied for over a decade, and tried to adopt my son behind my back, until I crashed their court plan with proof. At 17, I discovered I had a son, not a nephew. My parents covered it up, then tried to take him away again using my autism diagnosis. My sister dumped her autistic son on me every day for years until I figured out why I was the only one who understood him. In my household, the youngest child was expected to quit everything at any time to babysit whatever child required watching because they did not yet have actual obligations. My sister Vanessa began dropping off her autistic son at our house while I was still in school, often literally forcing him through the door mid-meltdown as she reversed out of the driveway. She'd text me from her car that something had come up, leaving me with a yelling 3-year-old who couldn't explain why he was pounding his head against the wall. I didn't understand autism back then. All I knew was that my sister had decided her child was now my issue. Vanessa cried into her spaghetti about her exhaustion during a family supper, making the arrangement official. Mom massaged her back as Dad spoke about family duty. They discussed my new schedule as if I were furniture. They were changing my afternoons and weekends to accommodate Leo's treatment appointments and Vanessa's desire for breaks. They said that the high cost of special schools required everyone to contribute, and pitching in required me to give up everything that made me feel like a typical teenager. I knew Leo's habits better than my own class schedule. His sandwiches needed to be cut into exact triangles, no crust. Peanut butter was applied evenly to the edges. The television volume could only be adjusted to even numbers. Any variation from his normal rhythms resulted in meltdowns, leaving me with bruises on my arms from fighting to restrain him from injuring himself or trashing the home. When Vanessa saw the marks, she'd wave them away, saying he didn't mean it and that I just needed to discover his triggers. My friends stopped inviting me to events after the 5th or 6th time I had to cancel. Sophie's pool party was held without me because Leo was having a poor day. The school dance came and went while I tried to soothe him down after his favorite show was preempted. Driver's education became impossible because someone had to be home when his special bus arrived. My social life vanished as Vanessa shared Instagram photographs of wine parties with her friends, spa days she sorely needed, and weekend excursions with whichever man she had that month. Tyler then showed up and sat behind me in history class. He had no idea I was the girl who constantly left early, canceled arrangements, and never showed up for anything. We began conversing because he wanted notes. Then, after school, we hung around in the parking lot while he showed me ridiculous videos on his phone. I'd have about 20 minutes before dashing home, but he never made it awkward. He'd talk about traveling after graduation, about concerts in cities I'd only seen in movies, about a seemingly carefree lifestyle. When he invited me to a party on Friday night, I knew better than to hope. But I still asked. Vanessa chuckled when I mentioned it at supper, which made my stomach drop. She reminded everyone that she had plans for the night, that Leo only tolerated me as a babysitter, and that if anybody else watched him, he'd have a total meltdown. Mom instantly agreed, adding comments about selfishness and family obligation that had become so commonplace that they had lost their significance. Tyler terminated things that night, and we sat in his car as rain pelted the windshield. He kept his hands on the steering wheel and told me he admired me but couldn't compete with my family circumstances. After he drove away, I walked to my front door in the rain to discover Leo screaming about his chicken nuggets being the wrong shape, while Vanessa texted her date about how to deal with it. That supper was my breaking point. I attempted to explain how I was drowning, failing classes because I couldn't study, losing friends because I didn't show up, and witnessing my adolescence dissolve into constant babysitting. Vanessa rolled her eyes and labeled me theatrical. When I ordered her to F off, the stillness that followed was like a bomb going off. Dad's palm smacked the table so hard that the plates jumped. The lectures that followed about disappointment and family responsibility blended into white noise. Being grounded was nothing when I was already confined. But they still stole my phone and laptop, and the babysitting served as punishment for my ungratefulness. They reasoned that because I was already at home, I might as well do something productive. My window became my escape route. First, I walked across the neighborhood at night, breathing air that did not smell like juice boxes and meltdowns. Then, I'd meet my friend at the park, where she'd share her vodka-spiked Slurpee and fill me in on all the regular teenage drama I'd missed. The night Mom discovered me climbing back through my window, she threatened me with harsher punishments, earlier curfews and constant surveillance, but I persisted. Every successful escape felt like recovering a part of myself. Finally, they grew tired of the threats and locked me in entirely, window and all. By the third day of being trapped, I was so bored that I explored the attic. Everything was dusty except for one filing box nestled between old photo albums. Inside were medical records bearing my name. Autism spectrum disorder. Diagnosed at age 4, the same as Leo. Page after page of therapy records and treatment plans that my parents had discontinued. A letter from my doctor, circled in red. Parents questioned about utilizing patients to accompany their sister's similarly diagnosed child. Strongly warned against. The date was 1 week before I began babysitting. They knew why I understood him. Why I could calm his outbursts. And why I knew exactly what he required. They had exploited my own illness against me. When I heard footsteps on the stairs, I shoved everything back. But I'd seen the last document in the box. Leo's birth certificate, which listed my name as the mother. I quickly pushed paperwork back into the box as Mom's footsteps approached the attic door. The birth certificate slid from my anxious hands, flying behind a wooden beam as the door cracked open. Mom's gaze traversed the dusty room, narrowing as it came to me, sitting cross-legged beside the old photo albums. She tried normal conversation about what we'd have for dinner, but her gaze kept darting about to see if anything appeared off. I imitated her faux normalcy, saying I was just bored and hunting for old books to read. My thoughts raced with the unthinkable truth. Vanessa was identified as Leo's grandma on the certificate. Mom's hands shook slightly as she straightened a stack of boxes that did not require straightening. I stated I was looking for old fantasy literature, keeping my voice steady despite the earthquake inside me. Mom's false grin didn't reach her eyes as she requested I come downstairs right now. The way she said it made my stomach sink. Then she added the words that altered everything. Vanessa is here to discuss something serious. Vanessa and Leo sat down at the kitchen table together. He was arranging his crackers in neat rows as she looked through her phone. My parents exchanged loaded looks as I entered. Vanessa glanced up and revealed that she had been offered a fantastic employment chance in another state. The words struck me like freezing water. If she took Leo away today, I might not see him again. Never get answers. Never protect him from the truth that they were all hiding. I saw Leo organize his crackers with the same painstaking precision that I had employed as a child with my toys. He grinned up at me and reached out for my hand with extraordinary affection, his little fingers clasped around mine. And the sensation seemed achingly familiar. As if something deep within my bones recognized him. My parents quickly turned his attention to Vanessa, but I noticed her distress as he refused, still clinging to me. The tension in the room increased as everyone pretended everything was normal. I sneaked away, claiming I needed the bathroom, but instead went to my parents' room. The laptop sat open on the bed. My heart pounded as I quickly studied the screen. An email thread featured candid talks with a family lawyer about finalizing an adoption. The subject line, regarding Leo's adoption, made my blood ice. There is an urgent timetable. The most recent message addressed court dates and relevant papers. Dad's footsteps resonated through the hall. I just got the laptop closed and stepped back before he appeared in the doorway. His expression stiffened immediately. He knew I had seen something. We stood there for a time, him blocking the exit and me attempting to appear calm despite my pounding heart. He didn't say anything, only motioned for me to return to the kitchen. Back at supper, my parents presented Vanessa's move as a fantastic opportunity for everyone. Mom kept underlining that I'd finally have my freedom back. Could concentrate on school, perhaps even date again. Vanessa avoided eye contact as she cut Leo's sandwich into neat triangles. The entire talk felt rehearsed, as if they had practiced these words. My phone buzzed with a text from Chloe wondering whether I was all right. She had driven by earlier and noticed me in the attic window looking upset. Mom took my phone before I could react, citing the supposedly still applicable grounding restrictions. That night, sleeping was impossible. I recovered the ancient digital camera that I had buried in my closet months ago. Mom was checking on me through my window, and I could see her reflection in the glass. When her footsteps stopped, I zoomed in on the mirror, hoping to get any detail from her glasses that may reveal the birth certificate page. After dozens of efforts, I finally got a grainy but readable shot. The father's name part was blank, but everything else was clear. My name, age, the date Leo was born, and the truth they'd tried to hide. Vanessa tried to explain the change the next morning, and Leo had a complete tantrum. He clung to me, continuously expressing his want to stay with me. His remarks were garbled and desperate. Vanessa's carefully maintained facade slipped as she told him to stop being tough. The biting edge in her voice caused him to cry harder. I held him while she rushed out onto the porch, leaving me to calm the boy, who appeared to be my son. Mom joyfully detailed all of my future options after I was no longer responsible for babysitting at breakfast the next morning. Dad suggested a boarding school leaflet that had recently received. They'd looked at programs for disturbed kids with specific needs. The isolation approach was obvious. Send me away before I could tell anyone the truth. I played along. asking questions about the programs and memorizing everything I'd need to fight back. Later, when organizing my closet per Mom's instructions, I discovered my old diary concealed inside a shoebox. Flipping through it, I noticed that pages from a full year had been carefully removed. The previous entries reflected typical 11-year-old worries. The subsequent postings were in unsteady handwriting, with statements of feeling sick and references to recovering from something that was never described. The interval coincided nicely with when Leo would have been born. Vanessa dropped off Leo for what she described as his last normal week. Her new partner waited inside the car, pounding on the steering wheel. She frantically told Mom to keep everything stable until the paperwork was completed. They assumed I was upstairs, but I heard everything from the corridor. Mom told her that it will all be resolved by Friday. 3 days to discover the truth and halt whatever they were plotting. My parents arranged an emergency therapy appointment, citing concerns about my recent behavior. The therapist appeared weirdly preoccupied with my phony recollections and attention-seeking habits. I love how Mom is trying to sell the entire, "you'll have your freedom back" thing, like she's a used car salesperson, but our OP is sitting there with evidence that would impress Sherlock Holmes. Can we also talk about Dad standing in the doorway like a hallway bouncer? The man did not even need to speak. Only pure dad energy is obstructing the exit. She kept bringing up my autism diagnosis and how it could make me confused about reality. When I mentioned the documents I had discovered, she rejected them as misconceptions. She's been treating our family for years, she explained, including sessions I didn't recall. I felt physically nauseous when I realized they had been setting the framework for this gaslighting. I slipped out of the house when Leo was napping. The library was a short walk away. Mrs. Park, whom I'd known since infancy, was surprised to see me. She mentioned how I had disappeared for a spell when I was 12, and how my family had abruptly stopped attending library activities. When I inquired about incidents from a few years prior, she consulted the old newspaper archives. In a group shot from a summer reading program, she pointed to where I should have stood. The space was unoccupied. I'd been absent from public life for months. Back home, Leo's behavioral therapist informed my parents that he was always mentioning having 2 mothers, implying a misunderstanding of family structure. Mom soon maintained that his autism was causing the confusion, and that he had mixed up caregivers. The therapist was doubtful but did not press. I stared from the doorway as she took notes, most likely documenting the inconsistencies she was observing. That evening I closely examined Leo's characteristics while assisting him with his problem. The shape of his nose, the way his hair curled at the temples, and the exact shade of brown in his eyes are all reminiscent of my childhood photographs. How come I had never seen it before? Or had I already understood on some level? Some deep instinct led me to comprehend him in ways no one else could. Nina, Chloe's older sister, texted me personally. She was in college now, but she remembered when I went to stay with family in 8th grade. She had always puzzled why I came back so different and quiet. Her parents had informed her that I needed specialist care for behavioral disorders, but she hadn't believed them. She recounted how hollow I looked when I returned, and how my parents had watched over me for months following. I persuaded Nina to meet me at the park during Leo's therapy session. She revealed further information. My parents had informed everyone that I was battling with autism and need intense treatment. Vanessa had apparently been away at college, but she returned with a baby about the same time I did. The timetable had never quite added up, but no one questioned bereaved parents dealing with a terrible circumstance. Vanessa arrived early to pick up Leo and caught me displaying him our old photo albums. She grabbed them away, but not before I noticed a photo of me holding newborn Leo that had been clumsily hacked out, creating a person-shaped gap in the family memory. Her face became white as she recognized what I had witnessed. We looked at each other across the living room, the truth hanging between us like a blade. Leo's crying woke up the entire house. As usual, my parents sent me to calm him down. He clutched to me in the dark, talking through tears. Vanessa had told him I wasn't his mother, but he knew otherwise. He knew I was the person who cared the most about him. His garbled but certain words broke something inside of me. I held him till he fell asleep while plotting my next move. The farewell dinner announcement came shortly after. Mom's voice was forced cheerful as she recounted how they were gathering extended family and close friends to wish Vanessa luck on her new adventure. I recognized the plan and swiftly surrounded myself with witnesses who would back up their version of events. The guest list read like a roster of everyone who may support me if they knew the truth. I spent hours in my room jotting down every memory fragment from the ages of 11 and 12. Certain fragrances caused visceral sensations. I couldn't explain clean hospital halls or the particular brand of prenatal vitamins Mom used to take. Thunder still made me curl into myself, but I couldn't remember why. My memory gaps were perfectly aligned with Leo's conception timing, leaving a 9-month blank where my youth had been obliterated. Uncle Travis arrived early to help with the dinner preparations. He found me in the kitchen, arranging vegetables, and whispered discreetly that he'd never understood why my parents had sent me away that year. His confession struck me like a physical blow. I asked him for help before leaving, terrified of something I couldn't identify. My parents insisted it was autism-related paranoia, and that I required specialist treatment for my own welfare. When I pressed for further information, Travis reluctantly revealed that I had appeared afraid of someone specific, but would not name who. His own son had autism, and he had never witnessed the characteristics my parents described in me. The mistrust in his eyes told me he'd always sensed something was wrong, but had chosen family devotion over difficult truths. Alone in my room, I drew chronology pieces on notebook pages concealed behind my dresser. Mom claimed her medical appointments were for specialist autism treatment, which coincided with pregnancy milestones, first trimester screening, anatomy scans, and glucose testing. Each therapy session corresponded to a pregnancy milestone, the data collected like puzzle pieces, building a picture I'd been taught not to see. The supper began with a procession of relatives and family acquaintances. I tried to take Aunt Sarah aside to discuss the documents I'd discovered, but she ignored my concerns right away. Parents always did what was best, she insisted, implying that I needed additional therapy to deal with my perplexity. Her patronizing tone made it plain that she had already been briefed on my alleged delusions. Chloe appeared unexpectedly midway through supper, claiming she was concerned about me. Her unexpected appearance ruined my parents' meticulously planned presentation. She casually commented how different I'd been since returning from my treatment, moving from outgoing to withdrawn overnight. Other guests began squirming uneasily as her views contradicted the narrative they'd been given. Using Leo's bedtime routine as an excuse, I crept into Vanessa's room. Her bag lay open on the bed, half-packed for a move that may never occur. Buried beneath folded garments, I discovered adoption paperwork with a court date. The timetable was speeding. Regardless of the facts I discovered, I would have no legal claim to my own child once the case was concluded. Mrs. Langley from next door confronted me in the corridor as I returned downstairs. She'd been drinking wine and was chatting, recalling how I'd returned from my aunt's place with baby Leo. My parents claimed Vanessa had him while she was away at college, but now I am his primary caregiver. She remembered how dedicated I'd been to the infant, like a little mother, before the family narrative altered, and Vanessa became the mother. I remained calm while she rambled about how several neighbors had noticed the switch but assumed it was a private family problem. Her casual observations verified what I already suspected. The lie was poor, held together only by people's unwillingness to raise hard questions. The adoption deadline neared, causing my palms to quiver. Legal routes would demand proof and time, both of which I lacked. After the visitors had left, I met Vanessa in the garage, where she was loading leftover food into the freezer. When I demanded the truth, the mask she had been wearing all evening crumbled. She admitted that it was better this way and that I couldn't have handled it at the age of 12. Her voice trembled as she insisted they had saved me from something that could have devastated my life even more. The bombshell hovered between us as she described how our parents had paid for her schooling, automobile, and now this job placement, all to keep the charade going. She said she was protecting me, but whenever she mentioned him, her hands shook violently. Before I could ask who he was, Dad stood in the doorway, his face dark with foreboding. He escorted Vanessa inside, emphasizing that false allegations damage families. Back inside, I noticed several family friends quietly discussing my troubling behavior in the living room. Mom emotionally suggested that my autism caused me to invent intricate illusions to cope with feeling displaced by Leo. The gaslighting effort had begun in earnest, with each person receiving a slightly different version of my alleged instability. I came across Grandma's old journal while looking for more proof in the attic. Her meticulous handwriting detailed her growing concerns about a family acquaintance who paid undue attention to me. Scott, who had assisted with yard work and home repairs, had abruptly moved away just before I was sent for treatment. The timeline matched nicely. Her final entry on the issue simply stated, "I should have protected her." Church became another example of familial excellence. I noted how some longtime members avoided making eye contact with our family, and how one couple purposefully chose seats across the sanctuary from us. The weight of silent knowledge hovered in the air, like incense. Everyone remained silent in order to preserve comfortable lies. Chloe assisted me in breaking into the school's old records department during her volunteer stint. My 7th grade attendance records revealed a 5-month absence labeled as medical leave with no details. The return date came exactly 2 weeks after Leo's birthday. We photographed everything, creating a paper trail that showed the time frame even if it did not establish the reason. Despite her parents' warnings about getting engaged in family conflict, Chloe refused to abandon me. She had collected bizarre texts I'd written over the last year about being terrified, hurting, and yearning to come home. Reading them made my chest tighten with phantom recollections barely beyond reach. We stitched together shards to make an unpleasant picture. My personality change had been drastic, and everyone noticed. The unexpected arrival of infant Leo, Vanessa's handy return from college despite no one remembering her leaving, and our family's quick relocation to a different neighborhood all created a pattern of concealing something too dreadful to admit. The weight of collective denial influenced my entire adolescence. The decision of whether to traumatize Leo with the truth plagued me. He deserved honesty, but he also deserved a childhood devoid of the ugliness that had taken Maya away. I decided to gather proof while shielding him from information that no 5-year-old should know. He could wait till he was mature enough to realize the reality before being destroyed by it. Confronting Mom as she was tending her garden proved to be a watershed moment. When I mentioned Grandma's journal, her face turned pale. She mumbled about protecting everyone in that situation and making tough decisions. Her slip confirmed what I suspected. They knew exactly what happened but prioritized family prestige over justice. Medical records from that period would prove everything. But she admitted they had been destroyed years before. Vanessa began to back away from the idea, telling her partner she needed to postpone the relocation. My parents responded by threatening her student loans, reminding her of how much she owed them for keeping her position. The fissures in their united front grew larger as each person's self-interest competed with the shared deception. The power balance shifted when I learned their dominance stemmed from everyone's complicity. Each person, guarding their own interests, had constructed the cage that had imprisoned me. However, secrets have expiration dates, and theirs was running out. Mrs. Langley nonchalantly delivers truth bombs after a few glasses of wine, utterly oblivious that she is effectively explaining the entire mystery while thinking she is simply making small chat. I adore how the most profound revelations come from a tipsy neighbor who simply wants to talk about old times. The community, which had previously looked away, was now looking closer. During a supervised drugstore run in the vitamin aisle, Chloe set up an unexpected rendezvous with Dr. Patel, my old pediatrician. The doctor promptly verified my autism diagnosis while Mom browsed nearby, but my parents insisted on discontinuing therapy. She had also treated me for trauma when I was 12, but my parents switched doctors after she asked too many questions. The medical establishment had failed me, but some people within it remembered. Other families at Leo's rehab institution began to notice irregularities in our family history. One mother stated that Leo constantly referred to me as his true mother and would sketch drawings of our family with me at the center. The truth was spreading organically through a 5-year-old's naive honesty, which was more difficult to contain than any charge I could make. My parents' options dwindled as their carefully crafted narrative revealed flaws. Dad proposed a family trip that sounded more like a relocation, touring colleges in faraway places and looking at prospects away from anyone who knew our background. The anticipated timeline coincided with the adoption hearing. Dr. Patel took a significant risk by exposing that she had preserved copies of my medical records despite restrictions. She suspected abuse and could not let potential proof go. Another family, she stated gently, had left town abruptly shortly after my treatment completed. The pattern of cover-up expanded beyond my family to a larger community conspiracy of quiet. I kept Leo calm by meticulously following his routines. Every interaction was documented with images and films from an outdated digital camera, creating a record of the years of care I had provided. He flourished with regular care, and his development accelerated when fear wasn't consuming our days. Chloe's family offered me refuge if needed, with their guest room serving as a potential escape route. Other community members who had seen abnormalities throughout the years began to share their observations. The Whisper Network, which had hitherto kept silent, suddenly carried queries. My parents' attempts to isolate me were unsuccessful, as unexpected allies appeared. Their contrived emergency lost effectiveness when patterns became apparent. Every time I made headway toward the truth, Leo would have a problem that only I could handle, or Vanessa would require instant assistance with something important. The manipulation was obvious now, as they made frantic movements in a losing game. Mrs. Whitaker, the elderly church pianist, approached me after the service with tears in her eyes. She'd noticed me looking bad at 12 and been informed it was a medical ailment. She'd never believed it, but she'd kept quiet to preserve her family's privacy. Her conscience would not allow her to remain silent while history could repeat itself with Leo. My reputation in the neighborhood transformed as people realized I had always been the reliable caregiver. Leo's professors applauded my effort while questioned Vanessa's inconsistent participation. The story my parents had created began to collapse when observed reality contradicted their claims. Under tangled necklaces in Mom's jewelry box, I discovered a hospital bracelet, newborn boy with my last name, Leo's birth date, and my patient ID number. Physical evidence that no amount of gaslighting could remove. The adoption hearing loomed. Speaking up would entail disclosing everything, yet remaining silent would mean losing my son forever. The following morning, however, everything changed. Scott's mother stopped me at the mailbox, her entire body quivering. She made a hasty apology before running back to her residence. Her son had assaulted me, and both families had covered up the incident to protect their reputations. The confirmation of what my body remembered but my mind had ignored destroyed something deep within me. The true stakes emerged with harsh clarity. This was about more than simply Leo's custody, it was about breaking a pattern of silence that allowed predators to thrive. My parents had given up my childhood to maintain their image. I wouldn't allow them give up Leo's future to save their own. Despite tiredness and re-traumatization, I completed a written statement for the adoption hearing. The truth became my weapon against years of gaslighting. Each piece of proof, each witness eager to speak up, and each break in their facade boosted my determination. They had stolen my voice when I was 12. I was taking it back. Vanessa officially withdrew from the adoption arrangement and moved in with her boyfriend temporarily. She couldn't keep up the performance anymore. Could not look Leo in the eyes while snatching his mother. My parents' flawless plan failed when their intended substitute mother defected. Community support grew as a result of hushed chats and knowing looks. People who had preserved respectful silence for years began to take sides. My parents discovered that their social standing, which they had given everything to defend, was crumbling under the weight of revealed truth. Leo's therapy was my first official victory. She formally documented her worries regarding the adoption and recommended that family dynamics be further evaluated. The system that had failed me began to function slowly and clumsily, but in the right direction. My parents made a final desperate offer through Mom's tears. They'd acknowledge me as Leo's mother provided I agreed not to expose the details. They would create a new lie. Teenage pregnancy is hidden for my safety. I could have my son if I maintained their reputation. The agreement revealed their true priorities in stark detail. I refused. Mom's collapse revealed the twisted rationale behind years of lies. They had assumed that removing trauma would remove its effects. They believed that preserving me from embarrassment was worth taking away my choices. The parents believed they are expert negotiators, proposing this deal as if it were a nice gift, when in reality, they are just attempting to save face after their entire house of cards collapsed because a 5-year-old kept telling everyone who his real mother was during therapy sessions. They'd convinced themselves that love resembled lies, and that protection included captivity. Her tears were genuine, but they were for herself, as the illusion crumbled around her. The adoption hearing approached as I gathered my proof and courage. Years of forced caring had gotten me ready for this war. Every tantrum I managed, every routine I mastered, and every moment robbed from my teens served as preparation for the battle to keep my kid. My phone buzzed with words of encouragement from unexpected places. Chloe collaborated with Nina and Uncle Travis. Mrs. Park offered to testify regarding the lost months. Dr. Patel prepared the medical records. Mrs. Langley would confirm the chronological confusion. Even several of Vanessa's friends, tired of her lies, offered to tell the truth. I sat in Leo's room and watched him sleep. His small fingers gripped the toy dinosaur I had gotten him for his first birthday, back when everyone still thought Vanessa was his mother. Nothing would be the same tomorrow. But tonight, he was just my baby, sleeping soundly and blissfully ignorant of the impending storm. My family's house was founded on lies. Each deceit backed the next in a sophisticated denial architecture. Tomorrow I'd tear the cornerstone free and watch everything come crashing down. They had taken my youth, options, and voice. They would not take my son. The evidence was ready. The witnesses were willing. The truth was prepared and aimed. All that remained was to say it in a setting where lies had no power, and documentation trumped denial. A 17-year-old female would get forward and claim, "He's my son, and I can prove it." The morning of the adoption hearing brought an unexpected event. My parents indicated that they were dropping the petition completely. Mom's voice conveyed a fake warmth as she stated over breakfast that they had reconsidered and that the family should stay together. Dad nodded along, making remarks about new beginnings and moving forth. After everything they'd planned, the relief that poured through me felt too good to be true. Uncle Travis called within an hour, congratulating me but cautioning me to remain alert. His instincts were right when I discovered additional documents on Mom's desk while she was showering paperwork for a competence evaluation, which called into doubt my ability to care for Leo owing to my autism diagnosis. The withdrawal was a ploy to create time for an alternative attack approach. Extended family members began reaching out, disclosing the story my parents had spun. Each relative had heard a somewhat different account of my alleged mental health crises, including my frightening delusions of being Leo's mother. The foundation of their new plan became evident. If they couldn't adopt him away from me, they would consider me unfit. Leo felt the shifting dynamics and became clinging and worried. His customary routines couldn't calm him down, as he sensed the anxiety emanating from every adult encounter. I tried to preserve routine by cooking triangle sandwiches and keeping the TV volume even, but his meltdowns became more frequent and intense. The therapist my parents were seeing called to organize an emergency family session. Her message expressed concern about my recent behavior and emphasized the necessity for rapid assistance. Chloe stopped me before I could panic and reminded me that paperwork worked both ways. Every photograph I'd taken of Leo thriving in my care became proof of ability. Dr. Patel jeopardized her medical license by meeting me at the hospital parking garage during her lunch break. She gave me copies of my medical records from when I was 12. My parents believed that the proof of pregnancy and delivery had been destroyed. Her hands trembled as she stated that she had kept them in her personal safe in case I ever needed them. The papers showed everything, even prenatal appointments disguised as autism treatment and a delivery labeled as an emergency appendectomy. As the truth circulated through whisper networks, long-silent community members began to take sides. Mrs. Whitaker organized other church members who had witnessed my commitment to Leo. They prepared statements regarding my stability and caregiving abilities to provide a counter-narrative to my parents' campaign. Vanessa's conscience finally broke entirely. She came to the house while our parents were gone, carrying a small recording device. She'd been recording their chats regarding the cover-up for months, first to protect herself, and now to provide as evidence. Her hands shook as she listened to a clip of Dad talking about how they managed Scott's problem by moving his family elsewhere. A competency evaluation was arranged. I spent the weekend with Chloe's assistants, accumulating years' worth of proof demonstrating my care for Leo, including every developmental milestone he'd reached, every therapy session I'd attended, and every routine I'd learned, all documented through images and notes I'd saved without comprehending their future significance. Scott's mother stood at our door, her face filled with years of hidden shame. She presented Scott's written statement, which he wrote with the help of his therapist, acknowledging what he had done to me when I was 12. Though I owed him no forgiveness, seeing his confession in writing offered critical documentation for why I was taken away. The morning arrived with Leo clinging to me, sensing that this day would shape our destiny. The evaluation took place in a neutral setting, a family services office that smelled like industrial cleaning chemicals and desperation. The assessor, a woman with kind eyes but a clinical manner, watched our interactions for hours. I demonstrated each step of Leo's care routine as she took notes. I anticipated his demands before meltdowns, diverted his anxieties through familiar patterns, and developed therapeutic approaches out of necessity rather than formal instruction. Leo himself became my staunch supporter, seeking solace from me whenever the stranger's presence overwhelmed him. My parents arrived midway through, wanting to intervene with concerns about my mental health. The evaluator forcefully told them to wait outside, but not before I noticed Mom's face of panic, along with a dawning knowledge that their grip was failing. Dad's jaw clenched, as he recognized several community people in the waiting area who were all there to support me. The examination included official assessments and inquiries about my objectives for Leo's future. I presented the support network I'd created, which included Chloe's family giving emergency childcare, Uncle Travis providing financial assistance, and Mrs. Park agreeing to tutor. The community that had previously allowed quiet, now provided resources for healing. During the break, I overheard my parents arguing in the hallway. Mom preferred to withdraw everything and negotiate privately. Dad insisted they had come too far to back down. Their united front was destroyed. Each was now protecting their own interests rather than the shared falsehood. Vanessa's desertion has triggered an unstoppable domino effect. The assessor proceeded to examine character witnesses. Leo's teachers discussed my engagement in his schooling. His therapist complimented my regularity and dedication. Even parents from his therapy group testified that I handled his demands with patience and ability. Each statement undermined my parents' tale of inadequacy. Mrs. Langley gave particularly devastating testimony about the timing issue, stating that I had been dedicated to infant Leo before the family myth changed to make Vanessa his mother. Her wine-soaked observations from the goodbye supper now provided critical evidence of the deception's shoddy execution. The ultimate blow was delivered when Vanessa herself testified. She drove back from her boyfriend's place, unable to bear the guilt any longer. Her confession was brief but detailed. How our parents had paid her to play mother. How they had intimidated her when she tried to stop, and how she had watched me raise Leo while receiving no praise. By late afternoon, the formal review had concluded. The examiner will submit her report in a few days, but her tone had changed from clinical evaluation to barely hidden sympathy. She had pierced through the layers of deception to reveal the truth about a young mother who had been raising her son without recognition for years. That evening, my parents made one more attempt at control. They approached me in the kitchen while Leo was napping, offering me a deal. They would support my custody claim if I agreed not to expose the circumstances surrounding his creation. They would create a new lie. Teenage pregnancy is hidden for my safety. The bargain proved that their priorities had not altered, only their techniques. I denied again, my voice firm despite tiredness. Their comfort had become less essential than the truth. Leo deserved a future based on honesty, not another generation of lies. My parents' faces fell as they discovered their power was gone. Without everyone's cooperation, their control was meaningless. The evaluator's report has arrived. It was suggested that full custody remain with me. She praised my remarkable caring talents, despite my youthful age and lack of professional training. The institution that had failed me had now acknowledged what the community had been seeing for years. I was Leo's mother in all ways that mattered. My parents responded by declaring their decision to relocate. Dad had obtained a work opportunity in another state, Mom told anyone who would listen. The societal ramifications they had avoided for years had arrived with devastating intensity. Their carefully nurtured reputation was in ruins, and staying meant facing judgment that they couldn't avoid with lies. Uncle Travis came forward with an offer that altered everything. He and his wife had additional space once their own son left for college. Leo and I could stay with them till I finished school. A genuine house instead of borrowed spaces and contested custody made it feasible for me to provide my son with the stability I'd never been able to provide. The community responded in surprising ways. Mrs. Park set up tutoring sessions to help me catch up on missing instruction. Dr. Patel introduced me to trauma counseling resources. Chloe's family provided respite care when I needed a break. The village that had failed to protect me when I was 12 now embraced us in solidarity. Vanessa placed the schooling monies she had gotten from our parents into an account for Leo. Her partial redemption included an apology and a commitment to be the aunt he deserved, rather than the phony mother she had pretended to be. Though trust would take time to re-establish, her testimony had been critical in uncovering the truth. Moving day came with bittersweet relief. I packed Leo's belongings, including his special dish, comfort toys, and the weighted blanket that helps him sleep. Each piece represented years of trial and error in determining his needs. Uncle Travis had already set up a room specifically for him, painted in a light blue that did not overwhelm his senses. My parents' departure was calm, lacking the pomp that usually accompanies significant life events. Mom grabbed me tightly at the door, whispering that she believed she was protecting me. I did not grant her forgiveness because she had not earned it. Dad avoided eye contact completely, packing boxes with the same tenacity he'd used to keep their lies. The house felt different with them, lighter, as if windows had been opened after years of stagnant air. Oh man. So seeing the parents try to negotiate a new lie while their old one literally falls apart around them is like to watching someone try to repair a sinking ship by digging fresh holes. Hey, let's just make up a new story because it worked so well the previous time, right? And Dad unexpectedly gets work in another state. Despite the fact that everyone in town knows their business is the most obvious. We are not fleeing. We simply adore wherever we will relocate. Leo rushed through the empty rooms, his laughter booming off the stark walls. For the first time, he could simply be a child, without the weight of secrets weighing on our interactions. That night, at Uncle Travis's house, I snuggled Leo into his new bed. He had arranged his plush animals in the exact order that gave him comfort. As I turned to leave, he reached for my hand and spoke clearly, despite his regular communication challenges. The term home has never been more meaningful than when he spoke it, understanding the safety of truth over lie. Months later, I saw him play in the park with other children from his therapy group. When the stress of our daily lives subsided, his development accelerated. He still craved consistency and battled with change, but his incessant anxiety had subsided. Other parents commented on his growth without understanding the entire story, but they recognized transformation when they saw it. My personal healing progressed in little steps. Therapy helped me process trauma that I had been instructed not to acknowledge. Support groups helped me connect with other young mothers navigating parenthood without typical family systems. Education resumed, with modifications for both my autism and my parental responsibilities. The truth had not fixed everything. Some days were still difficult, full with meltdowns, frustration, and the burden of obligations I had never chosen. But these were genuine difficulties now, confronted without shame or secrecy. Leo knew I was his mother. I knew I was qualified. The community knew the truth. The foundation made all the difference. Oh, look at it. It turns out that the truth really can set you free. Who would have thought? I like how Leo arranged his stuffed animals in the proper sequence, since even in a new environment, some things must be exactly right. I'm not going to lie, that home moment got to me. Especially coming from a kid who rarely speaks. And hey, he's now playing with other kids in the park rather than getting caught up in family conflict. My sister laughed at my $12,000 wedding gift in front of 20 people, so I took it back, overthrew Dad as CEO and claimed grandfather's entire legacy. Still trying to buy love, my sister laughed at my $12,000 gift. So I canceled the venue, burned the check, and took her name off the wedding. Here's how my story started. When the planner wanted a new payment, her fiancé texted me an angry message. It was quite rude. She stated that immediately after I handed her the folder. There were around 20 people around us, her bridesmaids, a few friends from her yoga studio, some cousins, and my mother. Everyone had just completed their small desserts, and someone had proposed a toast to sisterhood, love, and loyalty. Isn't this perfect timing? The folder was simple navy with no marks. I considered wrapping it or tying a ribbon on it, but it felt forced. I didn't want attention, I just wanted to give her something practical so she didn't have to worry about the two largest expenses, the location, and the outfit. What about the extra cash? That was simply because I knew things would always run over budget. She never asked, and I didn't think she needed to. She was my sister, so I handed it to her and simply said, "Here." She opened it slowly, as if she expected it to be sentimental or boring. She then noticed the printouts, the dress credit confirmation, the venue receipt, and the check. She blinked. Then she displayed the check up for everyone to see. "Ah," she exclaimed loudly enough to make the room quiet. "Still trying to buy love?" Laughter. Not too loud, more like giggles that people didn't want to have but did anyhow. One of her buddies genuinely applauded. My face was burning. I recall glancing at our mother. She gave me a short, familiar look before whispering, "Don't be sensitive. It's just her way." Just her way. Her manner of calling you out in front of others. Her manner of transforming something generous into something pitiful. Her technique makes me feel awkward for caring too much. I returned the folder without saying anything other than, "And this is mine." I walked away. There's no drama. No one raised their voice, just left. That night, I sat at my apartment, staring at a folder on my kitchen table. I had not cried. I had not become irritated. But something inside me had flipped, like if someone had finally turned on a switch I had no idea existed. I placed 3 calls. First, consider the venue. The contract was in my name. I instructed them to release the date. There is no need for a refund. The boutique comes second. The credit was cancelled. Her dress was released from hold. Third, I tore the check up and burnt the pieces over my sink, watching them curl into ash. By the next morning, I had 10 missed calls. My sister left 4 voicemails. 2 weeping, 1 yelling, and 1 simply saying, "Unreal." Then her fiancé contacted me. "You're sabotaging her big day. Don't insert yourself into something you were never a part of." I laughed. I had only ever inserted myself quietly. I assisted them in their relocation. Lend them money. Her lies were covered up. I watched my parents go above and above for her, even when she missed Thanksgiving 3 years in a row. I did not respond to the SMS or phone calls. She had 3 weeks to figure things out. The venue quoted her $7,000. What about the dress? Gone. The planner refused to proceed unless she was paid in full. When I arrived at that shower, they had already spent about $12,000 to get back to where they believed they were. And what about my parents? They covered it. Complained the entire time, but paid. Then, as if nothing had occurred, my mother left a message that stated, "You're still invited to the wedding if you want to come. It's up to you. We'd like you there." That was when I realized they didn't get it. I was going. Of course I was. Not to celebrate but to complete what I had started. I knew I was not wanted there. That was evident from the moment I stepped into the venue. No greetings, no eye contact. Just a few odd looks from distant cousins who hadn't seen me in years. I was not even listed on the official seating chart. My name wasn't on any place cards, and the coordinator stared at me as if I'd walked into the incorrect event. I took a random seat at the edge of the room, close enough to the bar to avoid interaction. I didn't want to stay long, but I couldn't go without saying what I came to say. The ceremony was precisely what you would expect from a couple who had spent more time posing for Instagram than working on their relationship. She read vows that resembled Pinterest quotes. He termed her his ride or die, which elicited a giggle from the younger guests and a puzzled expression from our great-aunt Patricia. They kissed. Everyone applauded. I saw everything like it was a stranger's dream. The reception was considerably worse. I was seated at a table with 3 of Jack's co-workers, one of whom leaned over and inquired, "So, how do you know the groom?" I simply smiled and replied, "I don't really." That shut it down. When the music started and the drinks began to flow, I stood up to walk about. My parents pretended not to notice me. My mother was laughing loudly, perhaps more than she needed to, and my father was telling a vendor about how perfect the day turned out, despite a few last-minute problems. I nearly laughed. Eventually the lights darkened and someone tapped a glass to begin the address. Rachel's maid of honor went first. She joked about the 2 of them sneaking vodka from their dorm refrigerator and said they were sisters in another life. The best man then spoke, largely about Jack's past as a player before Rachel tamed him. Not very romantic, but no one seemed to mind. Then my father stood up. That made the room quiet. He thanked everyone for arriving, congratulated Rachel and Jack for creating a future based on love, and even expressed his pride at seeing them overcome so many obstacles together. He did not look at me once. Not when he discussed family. Not when he acknowledged those who had gone above and beyond. It was calculated and purposeful. They intended to eliminate me silently. The DJ then announced what I had been waiting for. "If anyone else would like to say a few words, the microphone is open." I stood. You could feel a shift. A few folks turned in their seats. A few murmurs. My mother froze mid-sip. My father tightened his jaw. Rachel glanced straight ahead, like she didn't notice me approaching the microphone. I accepted it and grinned. "Hi everyone. I'll keep this short. I'm Noah, Rachel's older brother." Some people nodded politely, while others were hesitant. I just wanted to say this day looks incredible. The venue, the dress, the food and the setup are truly beautiful. And none of it would have happened without someone stepping up a few weeks ago when everything nearly collapsed. Now, heads started turning. Jack's face transformed. Rachel was still staring at the champagne. I offered to help quietly. I paid for the venue deposit. I secured a dress credit. I gave money not to be thanked, just to help. I handed it all to Rachel in a folder at her shower. Pause. She held it up and said, "Still trying to buy love," and laughed. There is no more sound. That was the moment I realized I'd spent most of my life trying to be useful to people who only saw me as a backup plan. So, I took it all back. Every cent. I let them handle it themselves. And from what I hear, that cost about $12,000. Now several guests were whispering. A few individuals looked at my parents. I'm not bitter. I'm free. I'm done pretending I'm okay with being laughed at and then asked to foot the bill. I won't stay silent anymore. That ends today. I nodded once, returned the microphone to the DJ, and walked straight out the side exit. One person applauded for my granddad. It reverberated over the shocked room like a cough at church. My grandmother softly nudged him and shook her head. He paused, but he did not appear embarrassed. He appeared proud. Outside, I did not even wait for my coat. I just strolled across the gravel lot, got into my car, and drove home. Nobody followed. They arrived up at my door. My father talked first. "You embarrassed your sister. You embarrassed this family." He didn't bother asking why. He told me they discussed it, and that if I wanted to act like an attention-seeking child throwing a tantrum, I was out of the family company. Just like that. Cut off. I answered, "All right." No questions. No argument. That response shook him more than anything I could have said. This is part 3 of Noah's story. Part 3. The cut. After they went, I sat at my kitchen table for a long period without doing anything. Simply staring at the same point on the wall. I was not sad. I was not even angry. I felt still, as if a weight had finally been lifted. Even if it left a void behind. Being kicked out of the family business should have felt like the death penalty. My father constantly used it as a weapon. "You're next in line," he'd add, as if it were a crown I should be thankful for. But it never came with force, only expectations and silent acquiescence. Show up, shut up, and be helpful. I started receiving calls almost quickly. Greg, one of the company's senior members, left a voicemail expressing his surprise and hope that it was not true. He had worked for my father for 27 years, and had told me several times that he believed I was the only one with the foresight to modernize things. Then my Uncle Martin called. I left no message and just hung up. Even my cousin Lena texted. "Whatever you said at the wedding, it needed to be said." I had not intended it that way. I did not go there to set fire to everything. But when I saw those faces, heard those words, and watched them pass me over like I was a distant relative crashing the buffet, everything just spilled out. Clean and crisp. I didn't reach out. I did not show up at the office. Then I received a call from a number I did not know. One of the firm's longtime investors, someone who knew my grandfather, still retained a quiet stake in the company, despite the fact that he hadn't touched a spreadsheet for years. He asked if we might meet. We ate at a diner downtown. No suits, no paperwork. Only coffee and direct inquiries. I heard you're out, he said. Seems that way. Your dad's been pushing deals we didn't approve, cutting old agreements, taking risks that feel more like moves to prove he's still in charge than good business. I nodded. I was not surprised. I've known your family for a long time, he added. I remember you running around that office in sneakers. You've got something they don't listen to. He informed me that he and 2 others were contemplating a vote to restructure the board. Sure, there would be resistance, but if I was willing to intervene strategically rather than emotionally, there was a good possibility we could change things. Not just bring me back and put me in charge. I didn't say yes out of revenge. It was evident. For the first time, I could picture a version of my life in which I was not constantly seeking acceptance from my family. I did not want to destroy them. I just didn't want to use them anymore. I started slowly, showed up for meetings, I quietly gathered the numbers, I asked questions in front of people who were not accustomed to being questioned. The resistance was immediate. My father pretended not to notice me at first, as if I were just another vendor in the room. Then he developed a cold. Dismissive. Sarcastic. But I did not bite. I let him speak. I let him perform. And I let them see. I had no intention of seeking vengeance. I was laying a foundation. Because I knew that when it eventually snapped, I wouldn't be raising my voice. That would be him. And when it happened, I'd already have the advantage. I got an unexpected call. It came from Jack. I let it ring for the first time. And the second. On the third call, I answered mainly out of curiosity. He began by saying, "Look, I'm not calling to fight." I said nothing. He proceeded, "Rachel's been spiraling. She's convinced you're trying to ruin her life." I nearly laughed. He stopped, as if he was considering whether to continue. Then he said it. She got fired from her job. That is something I did not know. Apparently she had used her company's credit card to pay off a portion of the wedding venue payment, intending to return it before anyone noticed. Someone noticed. This was hardly her first warning. They let her leave peacefully. And now she thinks you told them, he explained. I didn't even know, I said. Well, she's unraveling. I didn't care as much as I expected. I told him that if she needed someone to blame, she should look in the mirror rather than at me. He did not dispute, only thanked me for calling, and hung up. I didn't mention the call to anyone, even when I met with the investors again. We had numbers on our side. 3 board members were preparing to vote to remove my father as CEO, citing mismanagement and conflict of interest. They asked if I was willing to step in not as a figurehead, but with complete authority. I said yes. What I didn't realize was that someone was feeding my father information. I found out when my mother walked up at my door. No call. Just her standing there in her trench coat, holding a coffee I hadn't asked for. I know what you're doing, she replied. I know about the vote. I let her in primarily because I did not want the neighbors to witness her arguing on my porch. You're going to tear everything apart just to prove a point, she told me. No, I informed her. I'm going to fix what he's been breaking for years. He's your father. And I was his son, I explained. Didn't stop him from cutting me out the second it made him feel powerful. She did not argue with that. She just sat at my kitchen counter, as if she owned it. She then dropped the second surprise. He had a stroke yesterday. Minor, but real. He didn't want you to know. For a little while I was unsure how to feel. It didn't even register correctly. My body heard the words but didn't respond. I asked if he was in the hospital. He's at home. The board can't find out, she stated. That's when I understood she wasn't present as my mother. She was present as his proxy. She wanted me to postpone the vote, allow them time to cover it, and spin it with sympathy. You want me to protect him? Yes. I gazed at her. For a brief moment, I remembered how Grandma used to bring my school lunches and wait by my bedside when I had fever. Then I remembered her whispering during the bridal shower. Don't be sensitive. It's just her way. I made my decision then. The vote happens as planned, I informed the crowd. If he's too weak to face it, then he shouldn't be in charge. She stood, dropped the coffee on the counter, and left without saying anything. She did not slam the door. She did not have to. That afternoon, my phone called again. It was my grandfather. Do it, he instructed. Whatever you're planning, finish it. The vote was not dramatic. There was no shouting. No last-minute speeches. Just raised hands, steady eyes, and quiet between names. 3 in favor and 2 against. My father was officially ousted as CEO. The chair nodded toward me and announced, effective immediately, Noah will serve as interim CEO. And with that, the room moved on. Everyone began discussing operational adjustments, new priorities, and planning a staff announcement. I remained there for a time, watching how smoothly the machine continued to turn even without him. That was the first great surprise. How little pushback there was. How many folks were previously prepared for this? At 4:17 p.m., my father entered. No knock. He did not ask. Just barged into the executive wing as if nothing had happened. The receptionist appeared frozen. The assistant manager turned away. He found me in his former office, seated at what was once his desk. I used to clean up his desk after he left coffee rings and papers all over it. He did not sit. He simply stared at me. You smug little bastard, he exclaimed. I did not react. You think this is over? You think you've won? No, I replied. I think I just stopped losing. He laughed short, bitter and nasty. This company runs on my name. Not anymore. You ungrateful little, I gave you everything. No, I said quietly. You dangled everything and called it love. His mouth constricted. Then something unexpected occurred. He wobbled little. I waited there, ready to catch him if he collapsed. But he waved me away and sat in a guest chair, as if the air had left him. This company will eat you alive, he grumbled. It always does. Then at least I'll know what I'm being eaten for. He looked around the room, as if he expected someone to intervene, dismiss everything as a joke, and restore order. However, there was no one. It's just us. You're not like me, he stated. I know. I let the silence continue. Then I unlocked the drawer and turned over the legal folder, which had complete documentation of the board's vote, the terms of his expulsion, the revocation of access, and even the courtesy clause that allowed him to keep his pension. He looked at it for a long time, then he stood slowly and walked out. That night, Rachel called me. No hello, no pause, only immediate poison. You think this is funny? What did you do to Dad? You think humiliating him makes you strong? I said nothing. He's embarrassed. He can't even look our grandfather in the eye. Do you know what you've done? I stopped playing the part. Oh right, she retorted. You're the victim. Poor Noah. Always giving. Never appreciated. I gave until I bled, I explained. And when I stopped, you called it war. She became quiet. Then she whispered something that chilled my blood. I'm going to destroy you. You've already tried, I said. You just forgot I could fight back. She hung up. Our mother called. This time it was just her voice. No visit. Just one sentence. You should be ashamed. I hung up. But the true surprise arrived that afternoon. One of the elder staff members hand-delivered me a paper note. It came from my grandfather. All it stated was, you did what I never had the courage to do. Don't stop now. Keep the name, but change what it stands for. I kept the letter in the desk's top drawer. That night I stood at the office window, the lights beneath forming a grid of possibilities. I did not feel proud or victorious, only steady. And it was enough. In the following weeks, everything settled into a new routine. People started to regard me differently. Not better, just different. As if they didn't know where the lines were anymore. Some people tiptoed, others conducted tests, I allowed them. I didn't require loyalty. I needed time. I kept my head down, cleaning the house one item at a time. Obsolete departments were consolidated. Redundant staff were surreptitiously reassigned. I reinstated old sellers who had been kicked out on dodgy circumstances. The company became leaner, smarter, and more reliable, and I made every move legal, documented, and mundane enough to avoid gossip. But Rachel did not stop. She attempted to elicit compassion online, claiming I sabotaged the wedding and spreading falsehoods about me being emotionally abusive as a brother, greedy, and envious. A few people believed her, especially her friends, who had long resented the fact that I did not treat her like queen. But she didn't realize I had the receipts. Every invoice, email and transfer. I sent nothing to the public or the press, only enough to our legal staff to subtly tell her she was on a tightrope. After that she became silent. Our parents, however, were more difficult to understand. They did not come around for meetings or holidays, and they did not support Rachel in the way I expected. Something had changed between them. Not only toward me, but also toward her. She had become a liability, and I believe they recognized for the first time that she had no off switch, not even for family. My father then returned, this time to the office rather than my house. He waited outside the building on a Friday evening. I spotted him as I stepped outside. I expected him to say something unpleasant, start over, and try to claw something back. But all he said was, "Do you want to get a drink?" We sat at a bar 3 blocks away. He requested whiskey. I did not place an order. He did not apologize. That was not his style. However, he did not make any threats. "You were right," he finally said. "You were just earlier than I was ready for." I said nothing. "I'm not going to fight you anymore," he said. "But I'm not going to pretend we're fine." "I don't need you to pretend," I told you. "Just don't stand in my way." He nodded once, finished his drink, and went. The true conclusion occurred when my grandfather died quietly in his sleep. My grandma called me, her voice soft yet broken. I was the first one she phoned. The funeral was calm, and the church was full. Rachel arrived late. My mother clung to my father's arm, as if it were the only thing keeping her standing. And when they asked if anyone wanted to speak, I stepped up but did not discuss the business, my father, or my sister. I mentioned how my grandfather used to teach me to play chess. How he would let me win until I was capable of winning on my own. I discussed the quiet between moves, and how he believed it was where you discovered who you truly were. Following the burial, my grandmother gave me a sealed package. It was his will. He had quietly moved his shares. Months ago. Everything passed to me. Every last share. The corporation was mine formally, legally, and permanently. My father didn't say anything. My mother appeared to have been slapped. Rachel began crying and departed before the final prayer. I did not celebrate. I did not call anyone. I just returned to the workplace the next morning, sat at my desk, and opened the windows wide. Allow the silence to settle in. Let the peace last. And then I began creating something new from the ground they said I'd never stand on. I'm not sure if there will be more to say after this. Perhaps one day they will come around. Perhaps they will not. I stopped waiting for apologies and started learning how to live without them. The story might finish here. Perhaps something unexpected will draw me back into it. In any case, I'll keep it here for the time being. Thank you to everyone who stayed for the entire event. My fiancée asked for space, then took a beach vacation with her ex using my money. I sold her car and changed the locks before she got home. Okay, Reddit, I was engaged until my fiancée suddenly told me, I need space. I respected her requests. A few days later, her friend provided me with images showing her on vacation with her ex. I didn't say anything. I got to work. By the time she returned, her key had stopped working. Her car was gone, as was her role in my life. Here's how things went down. Let me start at the beginning. I am a 29-year-old male who owns a custom motorcycle shop in Farah. Good money, nothing extravagant, but enough to live well in Arizona. I've been grinding since I was 20. After years of working 60 or more hours a week, I finally got the shop properly established last year. It began with simply, me, in a little garage area, hired from an old mechanic who was retiring. I now have 4 full-time staff and a reputation for doing some of the cleanest custom work in the Southwest. The shop was not given to me on a silver platter either. To grow my capital, I saved every dollar I earned while working at other stores, took night studies in business management, and lived in a shoebox-sized studio apartment for 3 years. It's deeply fulfilling to walk into my shop every morning knowing that every bolt, tool, and square inch is there, because I earned them. I've never been the sort to splurge on costly things. My father watched his brother lose everything in a horrible divorce in the 1990s. House, retirement funds, and even having to liquidate his little business to pay the settlement. From the beginning, my father instilled in me the importance of financial responsibility. Luke, build your own safety net because no one else will. This counsel proved to be life-saving. I recall purchasing my first good tool kit. Dad came over to my flat, noticed me organizing these brand new snap-on wrenches, and simply nodded. Good investment. Tools make money. Toys don't. He then assisted me in creating a custom storage solution for them out of scrap wood from his own garage. That's my father. Practical advice followed by practical assistance. I acquired my flat 3 years ago, when the market was down a little. The remainder of my money goes directly to investment accounts and the shop. The two exceptions to my modest lifestyle are my Ducati Monster, which is midnight black with bespoke exhaust that sounds like pure mechanical poetry, and my dog Max, a 3-year-old German Shepherd who has been with me since he was a puppy. I would occasionally take him shopping. Customers adored him, and he'd just sit outside my office, occasionally greeting folks with a tennis ball in his jaws. Max and I have had the most steady relationship of my life. There is no drama or complaints about working late. Only pure loyalty. The type of friend who is equally content going for a mountain run or simply laying at your feet as you work on engine plans. My fiancée Aretha, a 27-year-old woman, and I had been together for 2 years and engaged for the last 6 months. The wedding is scheduled for this fall, and payments have already been made on the venue, caterers, and other details. She relocated to my flat after the first year. On the surface, everything looked to be going well. She had her career, and I had mine at the shop. We had the entire future planned out. Meeting Aretha felt like fate at the time. We met through a mutual friend at a housewarming party. She was stunning, with flawlessly styled blonde hair, and the kind of presence that turns heads when she walks into a room. Smart too, always understood what to say to clients, and how to work a room. Our first few dates went perfectly. She appeared to be engaged in my business, asking the appropriate questions, and laughing at my jokes. I'm thinking about how I overlooked several red signs. She'd make remarks about my buddies being very simple, because they like sports and gaming. I dubbed my closest friend Tristan's apartment a man cave nightmare, since he had gaming consoles and a large TV. Tristan never liked her. He felt she had princess vibes and was always observing how she acted differently around certain individuals. Notice how she talks to that waiter versus how she talks to your landlord, he'd tell you. 2 different individuals. I dismissed it as her being socially adaptive. That's what males do sometimes. We see what we want to see. When a woman who looks like she belongs on a magazine cover expresses interest, we ignore the warning signs. Basic male programming fault. But I ignored it all because I believed we were solid. The sex was excellent. She looked stunning on my arm at professional functions. And I thought I had found someone who appreciated my efforts. When she suggested marriage, I thought, why not? I was settled and ready to begin the next chapter. It was a random evening in May. I was preparing dinner. Yes, I did the majority of the cooking even after spending all day at the shop, while she was too tired from sitting at a desk when my phone rang with a text message. Luke, things feel complicated. I'm stressed over the wedding, and I really need some space to think and figure things out. Don't contact me for a while, please. I'll reach out when I'm ready. It was more than just a gut punch. 6 months to our wedding, and she needs space? There was no warning or communication. Only a text requesting me to effectively disappear while she figured things out. But it's fine. I tried to be understanding. I texted back. Okay, I understand. Take the time you need. Then nothing. She requested for radio silence. I spent the following few days in a fog. Could not concentrate at work. I was working on a custom seat for a 72 Triumph when Tristan walked by the shop. He watched me sand the leather for about 20 minutes before stating, "Dude, that seat was done half an hour ago. You're just going through the motions." He was correct. I set down the tools and closed the shop early for the first time in months. Tristan came over on Thursday night with pizza and told me plainly, "Dude, this isn't normal. Nobody asks for space 6 months before their wedding, unless they're doing something dodgy." Initially I defended her. Perhaps she's just stressed about the wedding. Her mother has been putting a lot of pressure on her over the guest list. Even with my own ears it sounded faint. Tristan just gave me the look that says, "You're smarter than this," without saying anything. He has been my friend since high school. Been with me during my mother's passing. Helped me move my shop twice. Never asked for anything in exchange. The type of friend that arrives with tools when you suggest a project, not excuses when you need assistance. Then Friday night, I received a text from Aretha's friend Melissa. She's one of Aretha's co-workers, and we've always gotten along. "Luke, I think you should see this. I feel bad showing you, but you deserve to know. Attached is a screenshot from Aretha's Instagram close friends story, in which Melissa participated. Pictures of beautiful sunshine, the beach, cocktails, and Aretha looking outrageously joyful, while arm in arm with Jordan, her ex-boyfriend. This was the caption: "Living our best lives. Island getaway, reunited. Sometimes you need to revisit the past to see your future clearly." My blood became chilly. Space to Think referred to a tropical vacation with her ex-boyfriend, and she specifically requested that I not contact her. And she was naive enough to publish it on her close friend's story, oblivious to the fact that Melissa and I were friends. I called Melissa to get further information. It turned out that Aretha had informed everyone at work that she was taking vacation days due to a family emergency. Melissa emailed me photographs of an emergency involving bikinis, piña coladas, and her ex-boyfriend's tongue stuck down her throat. The hurt transformed into something else. A cold and harsh clarity. She didn't simply desire space, she wanted me out of the way while she tested her old relationship, keeping me as a backup plan in my own apartment, utilizing my resources while urging me to leave her alone. All the while, my wedding venues received my deposits, and her engagement ring was on her finger in the beach images. Fine. Saturday morning, I switched into tactical mode. First call, wedding venue, cancelled. I lost my $5,000 deposit, but whatever, cheaper than a divorce. Second call, caterer. Another $2,000 spent. Photographer, florist, and DJ. One by one, I meticulously deleted the wedding she had spent months arranging. The next call is for a locksmith. I had my apartment doors deadbolt and knob lock updated. It cost around $250, and was well worth the money. I spent the next hour poring over documents, documenting what I had paid for and what she had. The reality was grim. My contribution amounted to approximately 80% of our split expenses. Next, the ring. Aretha had simply placed it on her nightstand before departing. Probably didn't want tan lines on her beach photos with Jordan. My 3-carat diamond cost me about $15,000. I stored it in my safe, along with the paperwork proving I had purchased it. In Arizona, engagement rings are considered conditional gifts. The automobile needs context. About 6 months ago, Aretha's old Honda died. The timing belt snapped, bent the valves. It would have cost more to fix than the automobile was worth. She needed dependable transportation for client meetings, but her credit was ruined after maxing out credit cards on luxury bags and $300 facial creams. I agreed to help. I paid approximately $18,000 for a used but very good Mazda 6. The financing, title, and insurance are all in my name. I am not stupid. My father's brother committed the error. Allow his ex-wife to use the car he paid for throughout their separation. She totaled it and wasn't properly insured, so he had to pay off the loan while being sued by the other driver. This is not occurring to me. I called my father that night. I needed his perspective. Dad, Aretha asked for space, then went to Hawaii with her ex. I'm changing the locks and selling her car. There was a moment of stillness. Then, son, your Uncle Dave lost his house for less. You're doing what needs to be done. He then cleared his throat. Need help moving furniture? The agreement was that she would make payments to me, which she did, sometimes late, and use her automobile. But legally, it was completely mine. Never included her in anything. I drove the spare key to a dealership that buys second-hand vehicles. I'm the registered owner. I need to sell. They offered roughly $16,500 pending inspection. I completed the initial paperwork and left the car there. Her allotted parking spot at the apartment complex was unoccupied. When I told the manager at the dealership that I was selling my fiancé's automobile, she raised an eyebrow. I merely shrugged and said, she wanted space. I'm giving her about 16,500 feet of it. I called Tristan and asked him to pick me up. He was impressed. Damn, you're ice cold right now, but she deserves it. We spent the weekend boxing her belongings from the flat. Not tossing it away, but making it ready. Each designer shoe, I counted 37 pairs. Every pricey bag. Every piece of jewelry I had given her for birthdays and anniversaries was carefully packed away. During the process, I discovered a few fascinating things. Credit card statements showed hundreds of dollars in debt, which she had never revealed. A hidden stockpile of emergency cash, about $800, was fastened to the back of her drawer. A 3-month-old journal in which she had made pros and drawbacks lists, comparing me to Jordan. My name featured financial stability and good future father in the advantages column. Jordan boasted exciting, passionate, and history together on his side. Guess which way she was leaning based on her current location. I also had a meeting with my lawyer. I shared the screenshots, explained the scenario, and asked how I could defend myself. Arizona does not allow common law marriage, so there was that. We had never merged our funds. My flat was exclusively in my name, and I legally owned the car. He advised documenting everything: the engagement termination, the car sale, and the contents of the flat. I was told to only converse in writing from now on. I felt tranquil, as if I were executing an essential surgery. Did I feel like an absolute idiot? Absolutely. However, intellect, not emotions, was driving this bus. She requested space and no touch. She indicated that the relationship was over by taking a trip with her ex. I was merely honoring her request and protecting myself. The shop was quiet that weekend. I went in anyway, just to have somewhere to stay. Started reorganizing the tool room, deep cleaning equipment, and upgrading our inventory system, all of which get pushed aside during hectic periods. There's something soothing about establishing order to a room when your personal life is disorganized. My chief mechanic Diego came in for a few hours to assist with a hurried task. They didn't inquire why I was there on a Sunday, just offered me the things I needed. That is what I admire about the men at the shop. They recognize that working with your hands can help you process what's going on in your thoughts. According to Instagram, the Best Life vacation extended an additional week. The countdown to meltdown was underway. One small consolation amid all of this: at least my Ducati remained secure. Aretha had always grumbled that it was too risky and a waste of money, but I had insisted on maintaining it. When Tristan picked me up from the dealership, he looked at me and said, "We're going to ride bikes this weekend. You need it." He was correct. She had tried to get me to sell the Ducati around 6 months into our relationship. "We could use that money for a down payment on a bigger place," she said. Never mind that I already owned my apartment and had no desire to incur additional debt for a larger space that we didn't need. The Ducati stayed, and I was happy for the minor triumph. Sunday morning we rode our bikes through the highlands. Tristan rode his Kawasaki, while I rode my Ducati. The concentration necessary to navigate such curves at speed was precisely what I needed. It's impossible to think about relationship problems when calculating lean angles and watching for gravel. Max was the only bit I felt guilty about. Aretha had agreed to our puppy, but she had never properly cared for him. She had grumbled about his fur, energy, and the price of his food. Even so, if she didn't return, he'd be confused. It turned out that I didn't need to worry. Max appeared content with just me there, taking the entire couch without being shooed away. Aretha's tropical holiday with Jordan lasted 10 days. Then D-Day came. Tuesday evening, at 9 p.m., I was drinking a beer with Tristan, who insisted on being present in case things turned wild. We heard keys jingle outside, followed by puzzled scratching at the lock and pounding. "Luke, open the door. My key is not working." Tristan looked at me. Showtime. I opened the door halfway. Aretha stood there looking beach-tanned and furious, her bag beside her. "What the hell? Why doesn't my key work?" "Because I changed the locks." My tone was steady. Her eyes expanded. "You what? Why would you do that?" "You want distance and no communication, Aretha. I handed it to you permanently. Weddings are also canceled. I've already called everyone." "What are you talking about?" "I just needed some time to think." I took out my phone and showed Melissa the screenshot she emailed me. "Think about this. With Jordan, on your romantic beach break, which you mentioned?" Her expression changed from indignant to panicked in an instant. That, did Melissa show you that?" "That is not what it appears to be. It looks like my fiancé is on vacation with her ex while I am at home preparing our wedding." This is pretty self-explanatory. It was a last-minute situation. He was going through a difficult period and needed to talk to someone. Tristan snorted from behind me. I simply stared at her. "So you go to Maui to be his therapist?" Her gaze shifted to the empty parking spot. "Where is my car, Luke?" The arrogance in her voice was astounding. Like I had buried her toy. "It's not your car. Never was. It's being sold. Title, loan, insurance. All in my name." "You're selling my car?" She pounded her foot. "You can't do that. I've been making payments. Payments for using my car, which is now over. This is insane. I'm calling the cops." She took out her phone. Tristan, who had been observing, began giggling. "Yeah, call them. Tell them your ex-fiancé is selling his own car and changed the locks on his own apartment after you cheated. That'll go well." Aretha looked as if she had just spotted him. "This isn't your business." Tristan's reaction. "You made it my business when you decided to mess around on my best friend." She returned to me and said, "Luke baby, you're overreacting. Jordan means nothing to me. It was just a stupid trip to clear my head. I realized I want to be with you." I nearly laughed. "Save the performance. Your stuff is boxed up. Text me when you want to pick it up." That's when her 25-year-old sister Brooke emerged from the elevator. Great. Reinforcements. Brooke was a little version of Aretha. The same entitled attitude, expensive taste, and tendency to treat service staff as if they were furniture. The only difference was that Brooke hadn't found her own sucker to support her lifestyle yet. "What's going on?" she insisted. Aretha, full of tears. "He changed the locks. He sold my car. He canceled our wedding." Brooke scowled at me as if I had perpetrated a war crime. "After everything my sister has done for you, you just throw her out." Tristan snorted. "What exactly has she done for him? Besides taking a beach vacation with her ex?" I raised a hand, breaking off the brewing debate. "Check her Instagram. We're done." Max began barking at the commotion from inside his condo. Aretha's eyes widened. "Are you keeping Max too?" The audacity was amazing. "The dog whose name you couldn't remember half the time? That dog? She needed space to think, not for you to ruin her life," Brooke screamed. "She made choices. Now she gets to live with the consequences. Your stuff will be in the lobby tomorrow at noon. 1-hour window. If it's not picked up, it goes to Goodwill." I shut and closed the door. Through the door I could hear Aretha's outburst growing. Tristan simply shook his head. "Dude. Bullet dodged. Want another drink?" Max, who had been carefully monitoring the door, approached and rested his head on my knee. I scratched behind his ear. "It's just us now, buddy." Tristan raised the bottle. "To the most expensive lesson you'll ever learn." I clinked my bottle against his. "Worth every penny." Later that night, after Tristan had departed, I sat on my balcony and looked at the city lights. For the first time in months, I was able to breathe freely. No more justifying why I had to work late at the shop. I will no longer protect my time with my pals. I sent my dad a quick SMS. "This is me. It's done. Locks changed. Cars sold. Wedding canceled." He responded a minute later. "My dad. Proud of you, son. Come by for steaks this weekend. Bring Max. Your mom would have kicked her ass, by the way." That made me smile. Mom has been away for 6 years, but Dad was correct. She would have seen through Aretha in a heartbeat. The next day was like witnessing someone comprehend gravity as they stepped off a cliff. Aretha's texts began at 6 a.m. "You can't do this to me. Where am I supposed to live? I need my car for work. We need to talk about this like adults. I made a mistake, but you're being cruel." I did not respond to any of them. Tristan and I loaded her boxes and delivered them to the lobby at noon sharp. I'd even ordered everything by category. A courtesy she didn't deserve, but I gave nonetheless since I'm not an animal. Aretha arrived with Brooke and their mother, Cheryl, in tow. Cheryl, the root of Aretha's entitlement, attacked me right away. "Luke, this is completely unacceptable behavior. Aretha made one mistake. She was confused. She's under so much pressure with the wedding." "Not anymore, she's not." I pointed to the boxes. "Everything's here. You have 1 hour." My daughter lived there for a year without being on the lease, without paying rent, driving a car she didn't own. Seems like the free ride is over. Cheryl's face became purple. Aretha alternated between crying and glaring daggers at me. Brooke was on her phone, most likely updating the others of the family drama group chat. I left them to it. Informed the doorman they had till 1 p.m. and went to lunch with Tristan. When we returned, they were gone, along with her belongings. Mission completed. But it did not end there. The number of SMS and phone calls increased significantly. Aretha, Brooke, Cheryl. Even their father joined in on it. When banning their numbers proved ineffective, they began using friends' phones. The story they were telling was something else. They claimed I had viciously dumped Aretha over a misunderstanding, stolen her car, and kept her apartment. Of course, there's no mention of the ex's beach trip. Aretha's social media accounts went into overdrive. Vague posts about believing the wrong person and recovering from betrayal. A particularly striking one featured her staring wistfully out a window with the caption, "Sometimes the people you take a bullet for are the ones behind the trigger." The irony was thick enough to be sliced with a knife. Then our common friend started contacting me. "Dude, that's cold. Selling her car like that? Man, couldn't you have given her more time to find a place?" Melissa, bless her, was shutting that down anywhere she could. "He has screenshots, people. She was on a romantic trip with her ex while engaged." Aretha must have realized Melissa had emailed me the screenshots since Melissa began contacting me shortly after. She got me fired. Told our boss I was creating a hostile work environment by meddling in her personal life. This is simply an FYI. That annoyed me more than anything else. Melissa had done the right thing, but Aretha wrecked her employment out of spite. I quickly called Melissa and offered to assist her with references, connections, and whatever she needed. That was the least I could do. Melissa praised me. I knew she was self-centered, but I didn't think she'd go this far. I promised to provide her with some industry contacts who could be recruiting. She had skills. Aretha's vindictiveness should not jeopardize her profession. That night, Tristan joined us for our weekly game session. We turned on Call of Duty while Max lounged at our feet. My phone continued buzzing with texts from Aretha, who was using yet another friend's phone number. Tristan grabbed my phone between rounds and began reading them in a mocking tone. "You're making a huge mistake, Luke. I was confused, but I chose you. Please respond." Tristan scrolled to the next one with theatrical flair. "My mother is very disappointed in you and says you're behaving childishly." I grasped my chest in mock horror. "Guess I'll just cry myself to sleep on my Ducati." Another line read, "I hope you know you're breaking my heart. I cried all night thinking about our wedding." Tristan almost choked on his drink. "Oh my God, she's seriously complaining about her vacation time after cheating on you." My phone vibrated again. Tristan stared at it and erupted into laughter. "Dude, she just texted, 'I miss Max. He misses me too. Dogs need a mother.'" I looked at Max, who was happily eating his favorite toy. "Yeah, he's clearly devastated. Look at him, practically wasting away from grief." Tristan was still going through my messages. "Wait. Here's one from her dad. Luke, I've always respected you as a businessman. But your behavior towards my daughter is unacceptable. We expect you to make this right." Tristan tilted his head toward me. "What exactly does this right mean? Give her back the car you paid for? Let her live in your apartment rent-free?" I shrugged. Probably all of the above, plus a groveling apology for having the audacity to be upset about her cheating. The entire affair was ludicrous to the point of comedy. Aretha and her family lived in a world where deeds had no consequences, at least for them. In their vision of reality, I was the villain for reacting rationally to her betrayal. At work, I worked on a new project, a vintage Honda CB750, that a client had handed off for thorough restoration. There's something soothing about breaking down an engine into its separate components, cleaning each one, and rebuilding it better than before. The shop became my refuge, a location where issues had logical solutions, and tasks had definite beginnings and ends. My employees sensed a shift in me. Diego, my head mechanic, finally questioned what was going on after I had spent 3 hours changing a wiring harness without taking a break. I handed him the highlight reel. His response was flawless. A thoughtful nod followed. "Women, man. My cousin went through the same thing. You want me to order those brake calipers for the Triumph while you finish that wiring?" That's all I needed. Practical answers, not theatrics. The shop remained open late that week as I put myself into work. Nothing heals heartache like productivity. and a bank account that is growing rather than bleeding money for someone else's desires. Dad went by the shop with lunch on Thursday, continuing a custom he established when I first opened it. He'd bring sandwiches from a small deli near his house, and we'd eat in my office, chatting about everything and nothing. "How are you holding up?" he said between bites. "Better than expected," I acknowledged. "Work helps." He nodded. "Your Uncle Dave gained 15 pounds after his divorce, sat around eating microwave burritos and watching game shows." He smiled at me and said, "You're doing it right, stay busy, keep moving forward." Simple advice, but just what I needed to hear. 2 weeks following his return, the actual harassment campaign began. The police arrived first. I arrived home from work to see a patrol cruiser outside my building. 2 cops wanted to discuss a domestic dispute and charges that I was withholding personal items. I gave them the documents my lawyer had prepared: proof of automobile ownership, an apartment contract in my name solely, and canceled wedding receipts. I showed them the screenshot of Aretha and Jordan. I explained that I'd given her all of her stuff. They departed satisfied, as this was a relational issue rather than a legal one. As they left, one of the officers gave me a knowing look. "Document everything from here on out," he said gently. "These situations tend to escalate." Words of wisdom from someone who had seen this happen before. The next day, my landlord called with a noise complaint. Apparently, an unidentified neighbor reported loud disputes and potential domestic disturbances. I explained the problem. Fortunately, I had a positive relationship with the property management. She stated that she had witnessed Aretha try to tailgate residents into the building multiple times, which was against protocol. The situation then escalated. Aretha and Brooke began showing up at my business, just happening to be in the lobby as I was leaving. Aretha once attempted to force her way into the elevator with me, shouting about how I had ruined her life. When Diego and the other guys realized what was going on, they constructed a protective barrier. "Boss, do you want us to call security?" Diego inquired, placing himself between Aretha and me. I nodded, and they led the sisters out. "My squad has my back, no questions asked." This was getting out of control. I filed a police report about the harassment. I started documenting every conversation, saving every text and voicemail, installing a security camera at my apartment door that was linked to my phone, and giving the front desk a photo of Aretha with instructions not to let her up under any circumstances. The breaking point occurred when I awoke to discover my car's tires slashed. At 3 a.m., security cameras saw Brooke doing it. The camera was extremely clear, with her face visible as she knelt by each tire, meticulously puncturing them with what seemed to be a hunting knife. Police were called. Charges were filed. The incident report estimated the damage at more than $800. I upgraded all 4 tires to high-performance ones last year. Thankfully, my insurance paid everything after the deductible, but having the car hauled and repaired was a significant nuisance. I became paranoid about the Ducati after that. I started parking it in a secure garage a block away, just in case. There was no way I was letting them get to my baby. That bike was the payoff for years of hard work. If they had harmed it, I'm not sure I could have kept my cool. That same day, I received an email from Jordan, of all people. "Man, I'm sorry about all this. She told me you two were already over before our trip. I didn't know you were still engaged. She's been showing up at my place too. Just thought you should know." Aretha had fed him a whole lie, that we had broken up weeks before, that I was possessive, and that I refused to accept the end of our relationship. When he discovered the truth through common friends, he ended things quickly. Now she was turning up abruptly at his apartment, crying and wanting another chance. "Bullet dodged, brother," he replied before hanging up. I couldn't argue with that. Later I discovered that Aretha had spread allegations about me being aggressive, controlling her finances, and trapping her in the relationship. She portrayed herself as the victim of a domineering monster, rather than a lady who was found cheating and lost her meal ticket. What's the problem with her narrative? Too many people had witnessed the reality. My neighbors had noticed me walking Max alone every night, while she stayed inside watching Netflix. My staff had witnessed her show up demanding money while her credit cards were maxed up. Our pals had witnessed how she treated service personnel when she believed no one was watching. Tristan and Melissa stood by each other through everything. Tristan even informed Aretha via a mutual friend that I was documenting everything for a restraining order. Melissa, despite losing her job, provided me more screenshots of Aretha talking about the beach trip to her pals before leaving. Luke thinks I'm just thinking, lol. Meanwhile, Jordan and I will be living it up in paradise. The screenshots included timestamps and dates. There is undeniable proof of purposeful dishonesty. I included it all to the expanding dossier that my lawyer was maintaining. I contacted my father following the tire slashing incident. They're escalating, I said. Slashed my tires. Showing up at work. Spreading rumors. Makes sense, he responded with surprising calm. How does any of this make sense? Son, you revoked her free ride. People do not surrender resources without a battle. Your uncle's ex-wife did the same thing. She keyed his truck and told the neighbors he was cheating. It's what happens when the gravy train stops moving. He stopped, then said, Did you put up your security camera like I showed you? Yes, sir. I caught her sister on video with the knife. Good man. I filed for a restraining order. There was a lot of evidence. Workplace incidents, slashed tires, continual harassment, bogus police reports, and dozens of messages from various numbers after being banned. The hearing was planned. I was ready. The restraining order hearing was like viewing a real-life version of the shocking Pikachu meme. Aretha arrived with Cheryl, dressed as if they were going to church, perhaps anticipating pity from the court. I arrived with my lawyer and a binder full of evidence. Aretha's tactic became evident quickly. Portray a sad, bewildered young woman who made a mistake and was now being punished excessively by a domineering ex. It could have worked if we hadn't had the receipts. My lawyer meticulously documented the pattern of harassment. The judge flipped over the evidence with an increasingly serious expression. The judge issued the restraining order immediately. 3 years, and no contact within 500 feet of me, my house, or my business. That should have been the end. But Aretha's family had one final hand to play: desperation. About a month after the hearing, Cheryl contacted. The family was in financial difficulties. Aretha was unable to retain a job without transportation. Brooke had legal fees from the vandalism charge. They needed aid. Could you please contemplate selling Aretha's car back? Perhaps you could lend them some money to help them get back on their feet. I laughed so hard. Absolute audacity. These guys had attempted to harm my name, job and property, and now they sought financial help. Cheryl, I whispered. Aretha and Brooke are both in violation of the restraining order by having you contact me. I'm forwarding this call to my lawyer and the police. Don't call again. Later I learned what happened by word of mouth. Aretha was sacked from her work. It turns out that constantly missing work because you don't have a car does not look professional. Her credit cards were maxed up after the beach holiday. She'd been crashing with her parents, but her frequent demands had strained their marriage. Jordan? Long gone. He blocked Aretha after she repeatedly showed up inebriated at his flat. Brooke was sentenced to community service as well as reparations for slashing the tires. As for me, I sold the engagement ring and went on a 2-week solo vacation to Europe. I posted exactly 0 images online. When I returned, I painted the entire apartment, purchased new furniture, and reclaimed my home. The place looked better than ever. Now it's a tidy, efficient space where a guy and his dog may live peacefully. Tristan and I meet frequently, and he's actually getting along with Melissa now, which is an unexpected bonus. They've been dating for almost a month. Sometimes the 4 of us, including Max, gather at my house for game nights. It's good to see 2 people that truly respect each other. The shop was also booming. After that first week of fog, I threw myself into a major custom project, renovating a beat-up Harley Sportster into something spectacular. Stripped it down to the frame, rebuilt the engine with performance parts, and applied a unique paint job with delicate metal flakes that changed color depending on the light. Tristan had stopped by during the final assembly and whistled when he noticed it. Wow, you really outdid yourself with this one. The tank paint alone is worth what you're asking. The client who commissioned it was so thrilled that he recommended 3 friends who wanted comparable work. In the biker world, word of mouth is more effective than paid advertising. Diego and the crew had also made significant contributions throughout the Aretha ordeal. There were times when I wasn't feeling my best, and they took care of me, without complaint. When the Sportster project was highlighted in a motorcycle magazine, I ensured that everyone received credit and bonuses. A good team is worth its weight in gold. About 3 months after the restraining order, I was at a motorcycle show in Las Vegas, showing one of my custom builds. A woman approached and began asking thorough questions about the fabrication work. Not the typical, "it's pretty" comments, but precise technical inquiries that demonstrated her knowledge. Sarah, 28, is an industrial designer who rides a Triumph Street Triple. We exchanged numbers professionally, but ended up messaging about motorcycles and other topics. We've been dating informally for several months. She has her own career, apartment, and money. She strokes Max behind the ears right where he prefers it. Max brought Sarah his favorite toy the first time she came over, which he had never done before with Aretha. Dogs recognize exceptional individuals when they encounter them. Sarah attended Sunday lunch at my father's house last week. They spent 2 hours discussing motorbike engine design while I prepared steaks. Dad contacted me later. She knows her stuff. Good choice, son. High praise from a man who is naturally distrustful of everyone. I discovered more about myself in those few months than in the previous decade. I discovered I'm stronger than I expected, that I have folks in my corner who will show up when I need them, and that sometimes the best thing to do with poisonous people is to cut them off totally. These days I'm too busy developing bikes and a better life to think about what could have been. Certain classes are pricey, but gosh, are they worth it? Thanks for watching and being part of the drama. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a wild news story. My wife called my dinner poverty and threw it on the floor after I paid rent again. That night, I left quietly and started planning my divorce. After covering the rent with my emergency fund because my wife failed to pay it again, I returned home with a gas station meal and a headache. She glanced at the food and exclaimed, "Wow, you really know how to make poverty taste worse." Then she threw it out, saying, "Try again tomorrow, idiot." That night, I understood I wasn't a spouse, but rather a wallet with a pulse. She called me this morning, crying and begging. You know the type. The miserable sacks who let themselves be walked over till they crack. But here I am, sitting in my car in a 24-hour grocery store parking lot, because I can't bear returning to my own house tonight. It's funny how quickly your life can turn into a Reddit post. It started with the rent again. Skylar missed paying it for the 3rd time in 6 months, despite the fact that she does not work and has only one financial responsibility: transferring money from our joint account to the landlord's payment system, which takes around 90 seconds. My landlord notified me of the late fee by text message this morning. $65 went down the drain, just like the $130 from the prior 2 forgets. We can't afford to waste money right now. But regardless, I am used to it. I called Skylar from where I was already working a 12-hour shift because we're understaffed, which is corporate speak for, we don't want to hire enough people. She gave me the usual spiel about how she got distracted, how the payment portal is extremely confusing, and how she simply has too much on her plate right now. She has been unemployed for 14 months. Her plate has TikTok and our Netflix subscription. So I transferred the rent money from my emergency fund. Again. The emergency fund, which had nearly $8,000 in it 2 years ago, currently has a whopping $712, because my wife's failure to remember fundamental adult obligations appears to be our most regular problem. Fast forward to me driving home from my shift. My head is pounding as if someone is using my skull for drum practice. I am fatigued. I haven't eaten since my dismal desk lunch at 11 o'clock. So I swing by the gas station near our apartment and get some pre-made sandwiches, chips, and 2 bottles of Pepsi. It's not gourmet, but it will do. I come in the door to find Skylar on the couch, scrolling through her phone. The apartment is a disaster. Dishes heaped in the sink from at least 3 days ago, garbage overflowing, and the laundry I requested her to quickly throw in the washer still sitting in the hamper. But, whatever. I'm too tired to fight about this. I placed the gas station meal on the coffee table and mumbled something about dinner. Skylar looks up from her phone, looks at the food and exclaims, "Wow, you really know how to make poverty taste worse." I freeze. I actually can't move. Did she really just say that? After I just paid our rent? What happens after I work a 12-hour shift? After she made exactly 0 contributions to our household today. Before I can react, she swings her arm across the coffee table, knocking the food on the floor. The soda explodes on our carpet. Try again tomorrow, idiot. That's when something inside of me clicked. As if you've been attempting to solve a jigsaw and suddenly all of the parts fall into place, revealing the entire picture. I've been married for 4 years but have never been a husband. I am a wallet with a pulse. I've always paid for everything. Initially it was because Skylar was between jobs. Then it was because she was discovering her passion. Then it was because the job market was extremely competitive. Then it was because she was experiencing burnout. The justifications changed, but the fact remained the same. My paycheck came in. Nothing went out. Meanwhile, her own spending has continued unabated. New clothing, expensive skincare, constant meal delivery, because cooking is so draining. Every time I mention it, I'm the bad guy. I am financially abusive for questioning where our money is going. I'm controlling for proposing a budget. I am unsupportive for asking why she needs another $300 pair of shoes. Standing there, watching the drink seep into our carpet, which I will undoubtedly clean, something in me died. Or maybe you woke up. I do not know. I did not yell. I did not argue. I simply turned around, walked outside, got into my car, and drove away. She was left sitting there with her phone, attitude, and mess. I drove aimlessly for a bit and ended up in this parking lot, writing this post on my phone since I literally had no one to talk to about it. Skylar made certain of that over the years. My pals were losers, and my family was toxic. It's funny how everyone who could have had my back became problematic. My phone has been blowing up for the last hour. Text after text, first angry. Where TF are you? Then manipulative. I'm scared. Please come home. Then gaslighting. You're overreacting. It was just a joke. And now the sobbing apologies. I'm so sorry, baby. Please come home. I didn't mean it. I have not replied to any of them. Instead, I've been doing mathematics. Cold, hard mathematics. Over the last 4 years, I've spent around $192,000 on our living expenses, bills, and her personal spending. In exchange, she has contributed almost $18,000 over the brief time she worked. And that's just the financial aspect. I won't even talk about the emotional labor, the housework I do despite working full-time, the continual walking on eggshells, the friends I've lost, the family events I've missed, and the dreams I've put on hold. I guess I've been in denial for 4 years, convincing myself that things will improve once she found the appropriate job. We had more money, and she was less stressed. When? But tonight, witnessing her throw perfectly fine food out while calling me an idiot, I realize the truth. There's no when. This is it. This is who she is. This describes who we are. Alternatively, this is who we were. I'm done being a walking ATM. Tomorrow, I'll open a new bank account with a different bank. I'm going to divert my direct deposit. I'm going to phone a lawyer. And I'm going to figure out what divorce looks like after 4 years of providing someone's financial support. I'm not sure what she will do when the money runs out. Probably call her parents, who are reputed to be nasty, but she has no problem accepting their birthday checks. Maybe she should obtain a real job or find another sucker to pay for her lifestyle. Not my concern anymore. So, that's where I am at. I'm sitting in my car at almost 3 a.m., plotting my departure strategy from a marriage that I'm quite sure has been one-sided since the beginning. Surprisingly, I feel relieved. It feels like I can breathe for the first time in years. Has anyone else experienced something similar? Any suggestions on how to preserve my finances throughout a divorce? Because something tells me that when Skylar discovers her meal ticket is being walked out the door, things will become ugly quickly. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who supported my previous post. Waking up to hundreds of responses from folks who have been where I am was both uplifting and disheartening. Validating because I am not insane. Depressing, because there appear to be thousands of us walking ATMs out there. It's been 16 days since the gas station supper incident. 16 days of what I can only describe as financial warfare using spreadsheets instead of firearms. The morning after I wrote, I went straight to a credit union across town to create fresh accounts. The lady behind the desk continued giving me anxious looks as I stammered through my explanation of why I wanted accounts that my wife couldn't access. When I eventually stopped speaking, she simply slid a form over the desk and stated she'd seen it before. There is no judgment. There are no questions. It's just efficiency. That's when it dawned on me. This happens so frequently that they have a protocol. I redirected my direct deposit, which thankfully would not arrive until the next pay week. We left just enough money in our joint account to satisfy our immediate expenses. Then I spent 3 days creating spreadsheets, not just simple finances. I conducted a thorough forensic accounting on our marriage. 4 years of transactions organized into categories, with brief notes on what each was for. The findings were illuminating. Skylar had spent $11,642 in the last year alone on clothes, makeup, and what I generously classed as personal items. That's nearly $1,000 per month, on stuff, while I worked overtime and ate noodles for lunch to make ends meet. And the ends were not even meeting. We had $8,300 in credit card debt, which I was unaware of until I went through all of our accounts. It turns out that those forgot to pay instances applied to much more than just rent. I printed everything color-coded and with small sticky tabs. Because if I was going to end my marriage, I was going to do it with well-organized evidence. For the record, witnessing 4 years of financial abuse put out in Excel has strange psychological effects. I alternated between wanting to vomit and high-five myself for finally recognizing the reality. Skylar had changed dramatically by the time I returned home 3 days later. The apartment was spotless. She had prepared my favorite supper. She'd even put on her pricey cosmetics, which she saves for special occasions. The manipulation was so clear it was almost endearing. Imagine witnessing a toddler lie about eating cookies as their face is smeared with chocolate. I sat down at our kitchen table, set my binder of financial documents between us, and began chatting. Calmly. I explained that I was aware of my credit card debt, that I had misdirected my paycheck, that I had determined exactly how much of our joint expenses I would cover going forward, and how much she would have to contribute. For the first 30 seconds, she just stared, as if her brain couldn't comprehend the reality that I was actually sticking up for myself. Then came the waterworks. Then come the accusations. Then the promises of transformation. The typical manipulation trifecta. I'd seen it so many times that it almost seemed scripted. But this time, I did not fold. This time, I had my binder of truth and enough righteous rage to power a small city. When she realized that crying wasn't working, she changed tactics. She began to mention how her friend Lindsay had recently gone through a difficult time with her spouse, and had successfully resolved it. How marriage is about supporting one another during difficult times. If she got a job tomorrow, I'd be thrilled. I just turned to page 23 of my binder. The document has all of her past promises to find a job, properly dated and categorized by excuse. That's when things became ugly. She called me every single name in the book. Said I was financially abusing her by controlling the money. Said I'd always been cheap and weak. She claimed she only stayed with me out of pity. And you know what? The craziest part was that having her say all of it out loud made me feel better. As if she was finally being truthful for the first time in our marriage. That night, I moved into the extra room. Set up what my buddy Lawson refers to as a depression nest, consisting of a mattress on the floor, my laptop, and enough clothes to get by. It wasn't much, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night without waking up worried about finances. The following week felt like I was living with a stranger, who was changing personas to see which one would work best for me. One day, she'd be nice and sorry, preparing coffee, and inquiring about my day. The next moment, she'd be cold and aloof, slamming doors and moaning deeply. Then she'd be realistic, sitting down with job search websites and asking for my assistance with her resume. I remained nice, yet detached. Answered direct questions briefly. I didn't take the bait when she tried to start a fight. Gray rocking is a term used on the internet to describe when someone becomes so uninteresting and inattentive that they lose interest in attempting to persuade you. It turns out that it works. But the major changes began when the money ran out, roughly a week after I rerouted my salary. Her credit card was denied while trying to purchase delivery. I was in the guest room, but I could hear her on the phone, trying several cards and becoming increasingly irritated. The next day, She attempted to buy something online and allegedly had the same problem. That afternoon, I received a calendar warning that our auto insurance was due, something she had usually handled with our combined funds. Except today, there was insufficient funds in that account. Reality was setting in, one denied transaction at a time. She confronted me in the kitchen 2 nights ago, wanting to know what I had done. I calmly stated that I was now covering exactly 50% of our combined expenses, including rent, utilities, groceries, and car insurance. Nothing more. Nothing less. If she wanted to spend money, she would have to contribute. For a moment I thought she was going to hit me. Her expressions ranged from astonishment and bewilderment to fury, calculating, and eventually defeat. All in roughly 15 seconds. Yesterday morning I awoke to find a message on the kitchen countertop. She planned to spend a few days with her friend Cheryl, to think about things. She packed her laptop, makeup and enough clothing for a week. And you know what? Somehow the apartment feels larger. Her wrath and entitlement had taken up physical space that I could now breathe in. I am not naive enough to believe this is over. Skylar is not the sort to relinquish her meal ticket without a fight. But for the first time in our marriage, I'm not frightened to argue. I have my binder. I've got separate accounts. Most importantly, I've received confirmation that I'm not insane for expecting an adult to behave like an adult. My lawyer, a straight-talking woman who reminds me of my no-nonsense aunt, believes I'm in a fortunate situation. We are tenants. No children. While having mutual debt is unfortunate, we do not own property together. She is drafting separation documents that will divide our debts proportionally based on who accumulated them. Which means Skylar is going to discover that all those spa days and stuff were not free. I should be sad. This is the end of my marriage after all. But basically, I feel like I've been lugging a bag full of rocks for 4 years, and I've finally put it down. My shoulders feel lighter. Cheryl messaged me this morning. Skylar wants to meet and work things out. It appears she has been crying non-stop and is aware of what she has done. I agreed to meet her tomorrow at a coffee shop, neutral ground where she couldn't throw something, like my meal, or yell without humiliating herself. I have a feeling this will be the performance of a lifetime. Oscar-worthy tears. Promises of change. Perhaps even some strategic cleavage. But this time, I'm going in with fresh eyes and an exit strategy. Update 2. Well, it occurred. She ordered a $12 latte. Skylar's decision to spend $12 on a premium coffee, while lamenting about her financial situation, characterized our relationship perfectly. The coffee shop meeting went just as I expected. She arrived looking as if she had just come off the set of a sad music video. Slightly smudged mascara, stylishly disheveled hair, and that blue sweater, which I once remarked brought out her eyes. The manipulation was so clear that it was nearly impressive. For 2 hours straight, she went through her best hits. Tears, promises, guilt trips, and, when all else failed, cryptic hints about how beautiful her coworker Gage finds her. Everything was deliberately planned to make me feel like a hero capable of saving her, or a villain intent on wrecking her life. 4 years ago, it would have worked. Hell, 4 weeks ago, that could have worked. But sitting across from her, with my lawyer's counsel fresh in my memory and 16 days of uninterrupted sleep under my belt, all I saw was a con artist, whose favorite victim had finally figured out the game. I passed the separation agreement across the table. I gave her 2 options: sign it and handle it like adults, or fight me and waste her remaining money on legal bills. The agreement was more than fair. I even volunteered to take on 60% of our joint credit card debt, despite the fact that my spreadsheets plainly show she is responsible for the majority of it. She did not even read it. Just pushed it aside and said we could work it out if I stopped being so petty about money. Classic Skylar, treating a financial nuclear bomb as if it were a little quarrel about which TV to watch. I left her sitting there, still talking about how we could start fresh. I walked out mid-sentence. I felt like I was in a movie. Except there was no dramatic music. Just the awkward shuffle of coffee shop patrons trying not to stare at the crying woman. It was 37 days ago. Since then, things have been chaotic, but better. It's like I've been recovering from a 4-year relationship addiction. The first few weeks were difficult. Nightmares, second-guessing myself, gazing at my phone, wondering if I should just call and say I'd changed my mind. But then, unexpectedly, Cheryl reached out to me. Skylar's friend turned out to be less supportive than she had imagined. Cheryl began asking questions after 2 weeks of listening to Skylar's version of events, and witnessing her consume Cheryl's food and hospitality without contributing. Then she began to notice irregularities. Then she looked me up on social media and messaged me. We met for coffee. I got a regular drip, $5. Because I'm still healing the financial damage from my marriage. Cheryl shyly acknowledged that Skylar had been badmouthing me to everyone for years, portraying herself as a long-suffering wife supporting her failing husband through career struggles. This was the polar opposite of reality. But what is the best part? Cheryl had receipts, screenshots of Skylar talking in their group chat about how she trained me to pay all the bills, while she retained her own money. Pictures of buying sprees with the phrase, "Hubby doesn't know LOL." Text messages whining about having to pretend to look for work, simply to get me off her back. My 4-year marriage, explained in poisoned texts. I did not even feel angry, just got validated. It was like finally obtaining proof that I wasn't going insane. Cheryl apologized for trusting Skylar's falsehoods, said she recognized warning signs but ignored them since Skylar was so convincing. Then she did something unexpected. She promised to be a witness if the divorce turned ugly. She said she couldn't stand by and let someone be used like that. It turns out that not everyone has a damaged moral compass like my soon-to-be ex-wife. Speaking of Skylar, reality struck her like a freight train around 3 weeks after our coffee shop rendezvous. Her credit cards were maxed out. Her parents, who, I subsequently discovered, were not the monsters she claimed, but rather ordinary people tired of supporting her lifestyle, refused to send further money. Cheryl had instructed her to start paying rent, or find another place to stay. That was when the phone calls began. 3, 4, or 5 times per day. Voicemails alternate between crying apologies and nasty threats. The texts ranged from, "I miss you so much, baby," to, "You're going to die alone and miserable." The emotional whiplash was taxing. But my attorney had prepped me. Document everything. Respond modestly. Never engage with the insane. So that is what I did. Then came the day I had been quietly dreading. Relocation day. I had found a little studio apartment across town. Nothing extravagant, but it's clean, has good water pressure, and, most significantly, my name is the only one on the lease. I made arrangements to pick up my belongings while Skylar was supposed to be at a job interview, her first in months, that happened to be scheduled just when rent was due. However, she was not at an interview. She was waiting in the flat, sitting on the couch like the last boss in a video game I'd never play. For some strange reason, I almost laughed. Of course, she would ambush me. Of course, she'd make things tougher than they needed to be. Of course, she was wearing her blue sweater again. My friend Holden, who came to assist me move, tightened up alongside me right away. He'd heard all of the stories, but now he was experiencing the Skylar show live for the first time. The following 2 hours were the most uncomfortable of my life. Skylar alternated between helping pack dishes, strange, and accidentally dumping items I cared about, predictable. Making small chat with Holden, as if we were all pals hanging out, very uncomfortable. Asking pointed inquiries about my new surroundings, which I purposefully kept vague. I was waiting for the explosion the entire time, the yelling, the throwing of objects, the theatrical announcements. But it never arrived. Instead, when I finished the last box, she handed me an envelope and explained that she had been thinking a lot. Inside was the signed separation agreement. There are no modifications. There is no negotiation. Only her signature appeared on each highlighted line. I stood there, staring at it as if it would explode in my hands. After weeks of arguing, she finally conceded. It didn't make sense. That night, while I sat on my new mattress on the floor of my empty studio, reminiscing about my depressive nest in the spare room, Cheryl texted me an explanation. Skylar apparently met a guy at a bar. Some guy with a nice watch and a fancy car believed her stories about her controlling ex were quite sympathetic. Some guy had previously volunteered to let her stay at his apartment until she could get back on her feet. She had found herself a new ATM. And it became clear that divorcing me as soon as possible was best for her. I should have felt relieved, and a part of me did. But another part of me felt a strange urge to warn the poor man. I want to show him my spreadsheets and screenshots. To protect him from what I had just escaped. I didn't, however. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way. The weeks following have been strangely normal. I go to work. I return home to my little but neat studio. I'm progressively developing my emergency money, which is now up to $1,012. I'm learning to cook beyond my basic bachelor's skills. I installed a budgeting program that does not make me want to throw my phone across the room. The divorce was finalized last week. There's no drama, no court appearance, just paperwork, and a strange dreamlike emptiness when I saw the word dissolved imprinted on what had once been my most significant commitment. I wish I could conclude with some deep wisdom, but the reality is, I am still processing. I still find myself reaching for my phone to text her about anything humorous. I'm still waking up confused when I don't feel her on the other side of the bed. Habits formed over 4 years do not disappear overnight. But I'm also rediscovering aspects of myself that have been dormant for years. I rejoined my old gaming group. I'm talking with my sister again. I purchased concert tickets without considering how many ramen dinners I would need to cover the cost. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. I spent $1,200 to be my best friend's bridesmaid. Then she asked me to hide my race with a wig. I refused. Her fiancé's family lost everything. Yesterday I got a call from my buddy Lucy, 28 female, that left me speechless. For background, my name is Me, 27 female, and I have had a shaved head for about 7 years. Lucy invited me to be a bridesmaid in her impending wedding 2 months ago, and I gladly accepted. We have been friends since college, and I was thrilled to be a part of her big day. But the call I received yesterday altered everything. I grew up in a traditional Hindu household where appearances were highly valued, particularly for women. My hair was never cut from the moment I was born till I left home at the age of 18. My parents, particularly my mother, thought that a woman's hair symbolized her femininity and honor. By the age of 18, my hair had grown to my ankles and required hours of daily maintenance. I spent my childhood and adolescent years struggling with heavy, damp hair that took time to dry, painful detangling sessions, and the inability to engage in numerous activities due to my hair. The day after my 18th birthday, I left home and went into a modest flat with 2 other people. A week later, I strolled into a hairdresser and had my entire hair cut off. The stylist burst into tears while cutting it, stating she'd never seen such long and gorgeous hair before. I felt nothing but relief when the weight lifted from my head. Since then, I've kept my hair incredibly short, either a buzz cut or entirely shaved. I can't take the sensation of hair touching my neck or face anymore. The independence from needing to devote hours to hair maintenance has been liberating. My family did not speak with me for 2 years after I cropped my hair. When we finally reconciled, they continued to make comments about my rebellious phase whenever I visited, expecting me to ultimately grow my hair back. I have not visited in 3 years. All my friends, including Lucy, have only seen me with short hair or a shaved head. In the summer, I prefer to go entirely bald for comfort, which is how I appear right now. No one in my social circle has ever complained about my appearance, and many have praised how well it complements my face features. Lucy's wedding is set for August in Georgia, at a historic plantation house. When she asked me to be a bridesmaid, we talked about deep burgundy dresses, gold shoes, and professional makeup. Nothing was said about my hair. She seemed totally content with me engaging as I am. Yesterday's call altered everything. Lucy asked if I would do her a favor and wear a wig to the wedding. At first I assumed she was joking, but her uneasy laughing underlined her seriousness. She added that her future mother-in-law had seen photos of me and was concerned about how the wedding photos would look with one bald bridesmaid amid 5 others with long hair. According to Lucy, her mother-in-law urged that I damage the beauty of the images. I quickly refused. The mere thought of wearing a wig reminded me of how claustrophobic it felt to have so much hair. When I explained my reasoning, Lucy appeared saddened, but understanding. She called back an hour later, more insistently. She clarified that her future mother-in-law wanted me to wear a long blonde wig that matched the other bridesmaids. For reference, I'm of mixed ethnicity, with South Asian and African American ancestry. My natural hair when grown out is black and curly. The request grew more detailed and uncomfortable. When I asked Lucy if she or her fiancé would pay for a decent wig, which may cost hundreds of dollars, she rejected, citing wedding budget concerns. This is despite the fact that I have already paid more than $1,200 on the bridesmaid dress, shoes, plane ticket and hotel reservation for their destination wedding. I recommended wearing a decorative head wrap instead, which would be more comfortable in the Georgia July heat, but Lucy informed me that her mother-in-law had rejected this compromise. She wants me to have noticeable hair, or else I won't be able to join the wedding party. I received messages from 3 other bridesmaids last night, all of which suggested that I was difficult and selfish. They pointed out that it was only a wig, and it was her special day. One even stated that my reluctance shows that I do not cherish the friendship enough to make such a minor sacrifice. None of them understand that this is not a trivial cost for me. It asks me to briefly revert to something that represents years of control and restraint. I'm also concerned about the racial implications of asking a mixed-race woman to wear a blonde wig to match the white bridesmaids. My wedding is 6 weeks away, and I'm at a crossroads. I've already spent a lot of money to go, but I'm thinking of dropping out of the bridal party or skipping the entire event. I cherish my friendship with Lucy, but this request feels extremely personal and inappropriate. Another problem is the location itself. As someone of African American origin, I have mixed sentiments about celebrating at a plantation, but I didn't express them earlier since I believe Lucy chose it for its design and gardens more than its historical significance. I texted Lucy last night stating that I needed some time to reflect on things. She said she understands, but she hopes I will rethink since she really wants me there, and the mother-in-law is quite picky about appearances. This morning, her fiancé, Mark, 30 million, phoned me immediately, which he has never done before. He ignored my worries entirely, instead emphasizing how much his mother had contributed financially to the wedding, and how crucial it was to keep her satisfied. He stated that my inflexibility concerning hair was causing unnecessary stress during what should be a happy moment for everyone. The situation has escalated well beyond my expectations. What began as a request for a wig has led to deeper discussions about respect, cultural sensitivity, and whose comfort is important in social situations. I keep questioning myself if I am overreacting. But every time I imagine wearing the wig in the Georgia heat, standing on a plantation property and being forced to look more like everyone else, something inside me recoils. Several mutual friends have responded without being asked. Most people say I just wear the wig to keep the peace. Only one acquaintance pointed out the problematic nature of the request, particularly the blonde hair requirement. I have not determined what to do yet. Part of me wants to support my buddy on her wedding day, but another part of me believes this is a line I should not cross. The scenario has evolved from a simple celebration to a complex negotiation over identity and compliance. Am I being unreasonable by refusing to wear a wig like the other bridesmaids? Should I put Lucy's wedding vision before my own comfort and identity? Is completely backing out an overreaction, or is it necessary to maintain my boundaries? Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since my first post, and a lot has happened. Thank you to everyone who responded and shared their thoughts. Reading through your replies made me know that I wasn't overreacting, which gave me the confidence to face what came next. A few days after posting, I decided to contact Lucy directly. Instead of continuing our text exchanges, we needed to have a real conversation about this issue. She agreed, and we set up a video call for the evening after she ended work. The call offered information that fundamentally altered my perception of the situation. Lucy broke down almost immediately, acknowledging that the wig request had not come from her at all. Her future mother-in-law, Eleanor, 56F, saw my photo in the bridesmaid group chat and immediately objected to my appearance. According to Lucy, Eleanor spent the entire dinner talking about how I would spoil the wedding aesthetic and divert attention away from the bride with my extreme appearance. Instead of supporting me, or at least resolving the situation, Mark sided with his mother. He informed Lucy that because Eleanor was donating a large percentage of their wedding expenses, they needed to meet her demands. Lucy stated that she felt torn between her friendship with me and the pressure from her prospective in-laws. The most telling portion of our talk was when Lucy revealed that Eleanor had specifically stated that she did not want diverse-looking people featured in the wedding photos, allegedly because they would not match the traditional aesthetic of the plantation setting. The blonde wig desire was not solely about hair length. It was also an attempt to minimize my racial traits. I sat in startled silence as Lucy continued to explain. She apologized profusely, admitting that she was wrong to send along Eleanor's request rather than standing up to her. She confessed that she had been crying every day about the situation, torn between keeping peace with her future in-laws and doing what was right for her buddy. When I asked Lucy why Mark had called me personally, she appeared astonished. She had no idea about the phone call, implying that he had taken it upon himself to put pressure on me without her knowledge. This renewed concerns about their relationship dynamics. After analyzing all of this information, I informed Lucy that I needed a few days to consider. The argument over a wig had escalated into a discussion about unhealthy racial attitudes and interpersonal patterns. 2 days later, I received an extensive email from Eleanor herself. She had reportedly demanded my contact information from Lucy. The email was arrogant and deceptive, implying that my unique choices reflected a desire for attention that was unsuitable for someone else's wedding. She offered to buy a wig for me, but only in a tasteful blonde style that would not stick out. She concluded the email by stating that if I genuinely cared about Lucy, I would make this minor concession, or withdraw from the bridal party. I sent the email to Lucy without remark. She contacted me 30 minutes later, horrified. She hadn't expected Eleanor to approach me directly, and was humiliated by the contents of the email. During this call, Lucy appeared to discover a solution. She said she was done appeasing Eleanor and would talk to Mark about setting limits with his mother. The following development happened a week later. Lucy and Mark had supposedly engaged in multiple heated debates regarding the subject. Mark finally admitted that his mother's behavior was improper, despite his initial attempts to downplay the racial implications of her requests. According to Lucy, he realized the problem when she questioned how he would react if someone requested his sister, who has a prominent birthmark, to cover it up for aesthetic reasons. Lucy immediately notified Eleanor that the wig request had been cancelled, and that I would be attending the wedding as myself. Eleanor supposedly retaliated by threatening to remove her financial support for the wedding. This prompted another round of family conversations. Lucy contacted me yesterday to update me on the final decision. She and Mark have considerably reduced their wedding plans. Instead of the plantation site and expensive celebration, they're arranging a smaller ceremony in a nearby park for just close friends and family. They've opted to fund it totally on their own to eliminate Eleanor's financial leverage. Lucy apologized again for not standing up to Eleanor sooner and for placing me in such a difficult situation. She underlined that she appreciates our connection, and would never have let Eleanor's views dictate how her friends should appear at her wedding. I've consented to stay a bridesmaid, and the new arrangements are much more suitable for me. The park venue alleviates my unease with the plantation backdrop, and the smaller scale means less stress and money for everyone involved. Mark wrote me a separate apology text, admitting that he should have encouraged Lucy to stand up to his mother from the outset. He revealed that he has struggled with setting limits with Eleanor his entire life, and is currently undergoing private treatment to resolve these issues before the wedding. The other bridesmaids were divided in their reactions. 2 people have expressed support for the venue change, and apologized for pressing me over the wig. The others appear dissatisfied with the decrease in wedding preparations, and have become increasingly aloof in the group discussion. I am cautiously optimistic about how things have turned out. While the circumstance highlighted some troubling attitudes, it also allowed Lucy and Mark to set essential limits before starting their marriage. The incident has actually strengthened my friendship with Lucy, as we have had several open discussions about race, boundaries, and sticking up for what is right, even when it is difficult. The wedding is now 5 weeks away, and instead of dreading it, I'm excited to celebrate with my friend, in an environment where everyone feels safe being themselves. Update 2. The wedding took place last weekend, and I wanted to share an update on how things went. The wedding in the park ended up nicely, despite some last-minute difficulty. Lucy and Mark remained committed to a modest, self-funded wedding in the weeks building up to the big day. They sent out new invitations explaining the venue change, but did not go into depth about why. Most visitors were accepting, but some of Mark's extended family were disappointed that the plantation venue had been cancelled. Eleanor's behavior worsened as the wedding approached. According to Lucy, she tried to reserve the original plantation destination behind their backs, claiming it would be a wedding gift. When they declined, she unexpectedly showed up at their flat, bringing brochures for blonde wigs she had collected, just in case I changed my mind. Lucy remained firm and asked her to leave. 3 days before the wedding, Eleanor made one more attempt to manage the situation. She approached the other bridesmaids personally, requesting that they all wear wigs in solidarity with me, claiming it was a surprise Lucy had planned. Fortunately, one bridesmaid thought to check with Lucy, exposing Eleanor's trickery. Lucy then had to phone each bridesmaid to confirm that there was no wig plan, and apologize for her future mother-in-law's intervention. The morning of the wedding arrived with wonderful weather. Lucy and Mark chose a park with a full blooming rose garden, providing a natural adornment that was more stunning than anything artificial. The ceremony was set to begin at 11 a.m., followed by an informal lunch reception at a neighboring restaurant. At 9 a.m., while the bridal party was getting ready at Lucy's apartment, we learned that Eleanor had arrived at the park early and was putting up decorations that had not been planned or permitted. Mark quickly left to deal with the situation, returning 30 minutes later looking fatigued but determined. He stated that he had requested his mother to remove her decorations and had assigned his brother to make sure she did not make any additional adjustments. By 10:30, we had arrived at the park and found everything in order. Lucy and Mark's basic white chairs, floral arch, and runner were all nicely arranged. Eleanor sat in the front row with Mark's father, her face taut but controlled. The ceremony itself was beautiful and personal. Lucy looked stunning in a simpler dress than her original pick, but one that fit the occasion well. Mark's eyes flooded with tears as she walked down the aisle. Their vows included agreements to support one another's decisions and stand together in the face of external pressures, which seemed especially relevant in light of recent events. Throughout the reception, Eleanor kept a frigid distance from me and interacted only little with Lucy. She departed early, citing a headache. Her departure seemed to reduce tension in the room, and the celebration became considerably more relaxed as a result. The most memorable moment for me came when Lucy's father remarked in his toast that he values loyal friends who stick to their ideals in his daughter's life. He made eye contact with me as he spoke, and Lucy subsequently confirmed that he was referring to my refusal to compromise my identity for the sake of appearances. Mark's behavior throughout the day reflected progress from our previous contacts. He remained focused on Lucy's requirements, checked in with the wedding party on a regular basis to ensure everyone's comfort, and firmly redirected his mother when she began making passive-aggressive comments about the venue change. It was evident that he had made efforts to put his relationship with Lucy over pleasing his mother. The wedding photos were taken by a friend with professional experience, rather than the high-end photography studio that had been engaged. The preliminary images shared in our group conversation yesterday portrayed true excitement and jubilation. My shaved head stood out in the bridal party images, but in the same way that any natural difference would, as part of Lucy's true portrayal of her chosen pals. Following the reception, numerous attendees commented on how personal and meaningful the event felt, in comparison to more lavish weddings they had seen. The amended plans resulted in a day centered on the couple's devotion, rather than costly details, or matching others' expectations. Lucy approached me before they departed for their honeymoon, which had been changed from a European trip to a weekend at a lakeside cabin. She thanked me for staying firm. She recognized that the process of arranging and redoing the wedding had revealed key facts about her relationship with Mark and his family, which needed to be addressed before marriage, rather than after. Mark's final encounter with me included a handshake and a polite acknowledgement. "You helped us have the wedding we should have planned from the start." The incident confirmed my conviction that maintaining personal limits does not make someone difficult or selfish. Sometimes it provides an opportunity for everyone involved to realign with their actual ideals, rather than external expectations. Update 3. It's been 6 months since Lucy and Mark's wedding, and so much has changed that I'd like to deliver a last report. The effects of the wedding predicament lingered long after the event had ended. Lucy and Mark returned from their honeymoon weekend looking relaxed and joyful. They settled into their new apartment and began their marriage with what appeared to be a firmer foundation than before. They set clear boundaries with Eleanor, including limited visits and advance warning before any interaction. For roughly 2 months, this technique worked fairly effectively. Eleanor maintained a frigid courtesy toward Lucy, and avoided making direct contact with me at the occasional group gatherings that were held. Mark maintained the boundaries they had established and stood by Lucy when his mother made passive-aggressive comments about the wedding. However, in November, the situation quickly deteriorated. Eleanor began arriving at their flat unexpectedly, frequently bearing housekeeping things they needed or meals she had prepared. These visits typically featured compliments on Lucy's housekeeping or cooking abilities. When Mark attempted to reaffirm their boundaries regarding early notice, Eleanor claimed she was simply being a helpful mother and accused Lucy of turning her son against her. The breaking point occurred during Thanksgiving. Lucy and Mark had decided to split their trip, spending the afternoon with his family and the evening with hers. When they got at Eleanor's house, they discovered she had invited Mark's ex-girlfriend, claiming she didn't want her to be alone during the holidays. Throughout the lunch, Eleanor made numerous favorable comparisons to Lucy, highlighting the ex's traditional feminine beauty and family-oriented ideals. Mark had finally reached his limit. According to Lucy, he stood up mid-meal, urged her to pack her belongings, and said that they were going. Before leaving, he informed his mother that her behavior was unacceptable and that they would not communicate until she could respect his marriage and wife. They spent the rest of Thanksgiving with Lucy's family, who greeted them cordially despite the last-minute adjustment. Mark frequently apologized to Lucy for his mother's actions and for not setting stricter limits sooner. In the weeks that followed, Eleanor increased her efforts to contact them. She called frequently, sent long emails, and even contacted Mark's employer. When these attempts failed, she began contacting their acquaintances, including me, expressing worry for Mark's well-being and implying that Lucy was isolating him from his family. Mark and Lucy decided to temporarily restrict Eleanor's phone number and email address. Following consultation with a family therapist, they gave his father contact information in case of an emergency, but kept their distance from Eleanor. Lucy contacted me last month to give some important news. She and Mark have decided to go to another state for a fresh start away from Eleanor's influence. Mark accepted a job offer with his company's branch office in Colorado, and they plan to relocate next month. Lucy has already acquired a remote role with her present workplace, making the transfer more manageable professionally. The decision to move was not taken lightly. They had several meetings with their therapist, exploring if moving was avoiding or treating the problem. Finally, they decided that geographical distance would provide the necessary space to build good patterns in their marriage, without continual interference. Throughout these trials, my bond with Lucy has become stronger. We have weekly video chats, and she has been more candid about her challenges and accomplishments than ever before. She recently stated that sticking up for me in the wig scenario gave her the confidence to set other important boundaries in her life. Mark and I have also built a polite friendship. He messaged me last week, thanking me for providing the catalyst that helped him see problematic patterns in his connection with his mother. He admitted that if he had insisted I wear a wig as his mother had asked, it would have created a precedent for enabling her inappropriate control over their lives to continue unabated. The other bridesmaids have had varying reactions to the current predicament. 2 are still good friends with Lucy and have been supportive of the relocation. The others, who were more in line with Eleanor's traditional expectations, have progressively dispersed from her social circle. Eleanor continues to make contact on occasion, albeit less frequently. Mark's father pays them visits on his own, and has come to accept responsibility for supporting his wife's controlling conduct over the years. He has begun receiving therapy himself, yet he stays married to Eleanor. Looking back on how events unfolded following that initial wig request, I'm reminded of how maintaining personal boundaries can highlight underlying concerns that might otherwise go unnoticed. What began as a quarrel over wedding decor eventually revealed troubling dynamics that required addressing. They set clear boundaries with Eleanor, including limited visits and advance warning before any interaction. For roughly 2 months, this technique worked fairly effectively. Eleanor maintained a frigid courtesy toward Lucy, and avoided making direct contact with me at the occasional group gatherings that were held. Mark maintained the boundaries they had established and stood by Lucy when his mother made passive-aggressive comments about the wedding. However, in November, the situation quickly deteriorated. Eleanor began arriving at their flat unexpectedly, frequently bearing housekeeping things they needed or meals she had prepared. These visits typically featured compliments on Lucy's housekeeping or cooking abilities. When Mark attempted to reaffirm their boundaries regarding early notice, Eleanor claimed she was simply being a helpful mother and accused Lucy of turning her son against her. The breaking point occurred during Thanksgiving. Lucy and Mark had decided to split their trip, spending the afternoon with his family and the evening with hers. When they got at Eleanor's house, they discovered she had invited Mark's ex-girlfriend, claiming she didn't want her to be alone during the holidays. Throughout the lunch, Eleanor made numerous favorable comparisons to Lucy, highlighting the ex's traditional feminine beauty and family-oriented ideals. Mark had finally reached his limit. According to Lucy, he stood up mid-meal, urged her to pack her belongings, and said that they were going. Before leaving, he informed his mother that her behavior was unacceptable, and that they would not communicate until she could respect his marriage and wife. They spent the rest of Thanksgiving with Lucy's family, who greeted them cordially, despite the last-minute adjustment. Mark frequently apologized to Lucy for his mother's actions, and for not setting stricter limits sooner. In the weeks that followed, Eleanor increased her efforts to contact them. She called frequently, sent long emails, and even contacted Mark's employer. When these attempts failed, she began contacting their acquaintances, including me, expressing worry for Mark's well-being, and implying that Lucy was isolating him from his family. Mark and Lucy decided to temporarily restrict Eleanor's phone number and email address. Following consultation with a family therapist, they gave his father contact information in case of an emergency, but kept their distance from Eleanor. Lucy contacted me last month to give some important news. She and Mark have decided to go to another state for a fresh start away from Eleanor's influence. Mark accepted a job offer with his company's branch office in Colorado, and they plan to relocate next month. Lucy has already acquired a remote role with her present workplace, making the transfer more manageable professionally. The decision to move was not taken lightly. They had several meetings with their therapist, exploring if moving was avoiding or treating the problem. Finally, they decided that geographical distance would provide the necessary space to build good patterns in their marriage, without continual interference. Throughout these trials, my bond with Lucy has become stronger. We have weekly video chats, and she has been more candid about her challenges and accomplishments than ever before. She recently stated that sticking up for me in the wig scenario gave her the confidence to set other important boundaries in her life. Mark and I have also built a polite friendship. He messaged me last week, thanking me for providing the catalyst that helped him see problematic patterns in his connection with his mother. He admitted that if he had insisted I wear a wig as his mother had asked, it would have created a precedent for enabling her inappropriate control over their lives to continue unabated. The other bridesmaids have had varying reactions to the current predicament. 2 are still good friends with Lucy and have been supportive of the relocation. The others, who were more in line with Eleanor's traditional expectations, have progressively dispersed from her social circle. Eleanor continues to make contact on occasion, albeit less frequently. Mark's father pays them visits on his own, and has come to accept responsibility for supporting his wife's controlling conduct over the years. He has begun receiving therapy himself, yet he stays married to Eleanor. Looking back on how events unfolded following that initial wig request, I'm reminded of how maintaining personal boundaries can highlight underlying concerns that might otherwise go unnoticed. What began as a quarrel over wedding decor eventually revealed troubling dynamics that required addressing. Lucy and Mark are arranging a housewarming party once they've established in Colorado, and I've already scheduled time off work to help them unpack. Their new home represents more than just a change of location. It represents the importance of their marriage over external pressures and expectations. I'm pleased that sticking to my own limits resulted in positive change for the individuals I care about. When people refuse to compromise on their own dignity, it can have far-reaching consequences. For anyone feeling forced to conform at the price of their identity, remember that true friends appreciate you for who you are, not how well you fit into a predetermined aesthetic. Story 2. My spouse dug through my personal records to sell the beach house I inherited. I kicked him out and filed for divorce. I, 32F, and Rob, 35M, have been married for 7 years. We have a blended family. I have a 14-year-old daughter, Lily, from a previous relationship, and Rob has 2 kids, Jack, 16, and Tom, 12. Our journey began 10 years ago, when we met at a local charity event. I was a single mother fighting to make ends meet, working 2 jobs to support Lily and me. Rob was a pleasant and successful businessman who had just divorced. He swept me off my feet with his warmth and concern for both me and Lily. Our relationship started off like a fairy tale. Rob was attentive, compassionate, and appeared to truly adore Lily as his own. He would play with her for hours, help her with her homework, and even take her to school father-daughter dances. His sons, Jack and Tom, were initially cautious of us but eventually warmed up. I remember the first time Jack called me, Mom. It was during a family camping trip, and I felt like my heart would burst. We married in a tiny ceremony on the beach 3 years after we first started dating. It wasn't always easy to integrate our families, but we worked hard at it. We started family game nights, took turns picking movies for our weekly film nights, and made sure to recognize each child's accomplishments equally. My grandmother passed away almost 2 years ago. She was more than a grandparent to me, she was my rock. My parents perished in a car accident when I was 16, so she took me in and reared me. She was there for me when I found out I was pregnant with Lily at the age of 18, and she provided emotional and financial support while I completed college. Her death affected me deeply, and I spent weeks reading through old photo albums, reminiscing about the summers we spent at her beach house. Gran surprised me by leaving me her beach cottage in her will. It's a stunning property that has been in our family for generations. I have many happy memories of spending summers there as a child, building sandcastles with my parents, learning to swim in the ocean, and having bonfires under the stars with my high school classmates. When Lily was born, I began taking her there, where Gran would tell her stories about our family history. When we found out about the inheritance, Rob immediately began talking about selling it and using the money to establish a business he had been dreaming of. He intended to create a chain of high-end gyms, something he'd been planning for years but never had the funds to do. I hesitated. The house was quite important to me, and I wanted to maintain it in the family. I offered to rent it out during high seasons to make some money, but Rob was not interested. He insisted on selling, claiming that keeping it would be a waste of money. He contended that we could utilize the funds to ensure our future, pay for the children's college educations, and still have enough for his business enterprise. We debated it for several months. I attempted to explain the sentimental value, how much it meant to both me and Lily, but Rob was unable or unwilling to comprehend. He began making statements about how I was living in the past and needed to consider our future. Things came to a head last month when Rob revealed that he had called a real estate agent to value the house. I was infuriated. We had a major dispute, and I made it clear that I would not be selling the house. I reminded him that the house had been left to me, not us, and he had no authority to make decisions about it. He stormed out and did not return home that night. Since then, Rob's conduct has shifted considerably. He's grown cold and aloof, frequently staying late at work or going out with pals without informing me. He rarely speaks to me at home, and when he does, he usually makes disparaging remarks about the beach house or my selfishness. What's more, his attitude appears to be rubbing off on his boys. Jack, who used to be fairly close to Lily, has been making disparaging remarks about her. Last week, I overheard him tell Tom that Lily wasn't their true sister, and that they didn't have to share anything with her. It broke my heart to hear this, especially after all the work we'd done to integrate our families. Tom, on the other hand, appears perplexed and distressed by the tension in the house. He's been quiet lately, frequently withdrawing to his room to play video games rather than participating in family activities like he formerly did. Lily has also observed the shift. She asked me the other day why Rob no longer hugs her goodbye as she leaves for school. I wasn't sure what to tell her. The final straw arrived yesterday. I arrived home from work early, not feeling well, to find Rob looking through my personal paperwork at our home office. When I challenged him, he acknowledged seeking the deed to the beach house. He stated that he believed if he could find it, he could sell the property without my permission. I was astonished and hurt. I never imagined Rob would go behind my back like this. We've always been honest with one another, even when things were tough. When his business hit a hard patch a few years ago and we had to tighten our belts, we dealt with it jointly. When Lily was struggling in school and required a tutor, we made it work. I believed we were partners, but now I feel as if I don't know him at all. I instructed him to leave the house immediately. He attempted to argue, stating he was doing it for our family, but I couldn't take it anymore. He is currently staying with his brother and the boys are with him. Lily is concerned and perplexed by what is happening. She asked me if this meant Rob wasn't her father anymore, which crushed my heart. I attempted to explain that grown-ups can differ, but Rob still loves her. I am not sure she believed me though. I'm trying to stay strong for her, but I'm having trouble processing all that has happened. The seaside house, which has always had joyful memories for me, now feels polluted by the dispute. I find myself staying up late, poring through old images of my grandparents and parents at home, thinking what they would do in my circumstance. I'm not sure what to do now. Part of me wants to attempt to resolve things for the sake of our family. We've been through so much together, and the idea of breaking up our family is heartbreaking. However, another half feels that this betrayal is too great to overcome. Rob's actions have demonstrated a lack of respect for me and my feelings, which I'm not sure I can overcome. Am I overreacting? Should I sell the house to save my marriage, or is this a sign of deeper problems that we can't overcome? I'm feeling lost, and could use some outside perspective. Update 1. It's been nearly a month since my previous post, and a lot has happened. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for their advice and support. Your remarks helped me gain perspective on the matter and gave me the courage to stand my stance. After Rob left, I had some time to think things over. I knew that his behavior was more than just about the beach house. It was a symptom of deeper issues in our relationship. Looking back, I noticed trends I'd missed earlier. Rob would sometimes make decisions without consulting me, believing I would agree. I remembered how he had pushed for us to relocate to a larger house a few years earlier, even though I was content where we were. At the moment, I had given in to keep the peace, but now I view it as part of a bigger problem. I chose to hold firm and not sell the property. Instead, I began researching methods to make the beach house work for us financially. I contacted a property management business about renting it out during peak seasons, and have been researching local short-term rental laws. Rob contacted me about a week after he had departed and requested to speak. We met at a neutral location, a coffee cafe in town where we used to spend date nights when we first started dating. After everything we had gone through, it felt weird to sit across from him, as if we were strangers. Rob apologized for his actions, stating that he had had time to ponder and understood he was wrong. He claimed that the stress of starting his own firm had overwhelmed him and caused him to lose sight of what was truly essential. He expressed how much he missed the kids and wanted to make things right. I listened to everything he said, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. His apology seemed scripted, and he kept directing the conversation back to the beach house and how we could reach an agreement. When I mentioned my intention to rent out the property, he quickly began discussing how we could use the proceeds for his company idea. My concerns were verified a few days later, when Lily approached me in tears. She informed me that Jack had been messaging her, promising that if she persuaded me to sell the beach property, Rob would buy her a car when she turned 16. I was infuriated. Rob was not only trying to control me, but he was also using the kids to do so. I challenged Rob about this, and he made no attempt to dispute it. He said he was doing what was best for the family, and that I was being selfish by not considering everyone's needs. That's when I realized there was no turning back from this. The man I thought I knew, the man who had been such a devoted parent to Lily, appears to have vanished. I consulted a lawyer and filed for divorce. When Rob discovered it, he was outraged. He's been spreading lies about me to our friends and family, claiming I'm attempting to keep the kids away from him, and that I've been planning to leave for months. Some of our mutual acquaintances have stopped speaking with me, and it stings to think how easily they accepted Rob's version of events. The children are grappling with the scenario. Tom doesn't quite comprehend what's going on and keeps asking when we'll all be living together again. I attempted to explain in age-appropriate terms, but it is difficult to make a 12-year-old understand such a complex subject. Jack is furious and blames me for dissolving the family. He refuses to come to the home on his weekend with me, claiming he does not want to stay in the beach house. I'm trying to be patient with him, recognizing that he's a teenager going through a lot of transitions, but it's difficult not to take his words personally. Lily is quieter than normal, but she informed me she's relieved we're not returning to Rob. She told me she was concerned with Rob's recent behavior, saying he made comments about how she wasn't truly a part of the family while I wasn't present. Hearing this crushed my heart, but it also confirmed that I was making the correct decision. I've been trying to keep things normal for the kids. We've been spending weekends at the beach house, and I can see how important it is for Lily to have this connection with her great-grandmother. We've been going through old photo albums together, and I've been telling stories about my childhood and family history. It has been a healing journey for both of us. On a lighter note, I've reconnected with several old pals, who have been quite helpful. Margaret, 33F, a buddy from college, has been extremely helpful. She has been coming over to help with the kids, bringing meals when I am too tired to cook, and simply lending an ear when I need to talk. Her support has reminded me of the value of having a solid support network outside of my marriage. The divorce proceedings are just beginning, and I know it will be a lengthy and tough process. Rob is fighting the custody arrangement, claiming that because Lily is not his biological daughter, he should not have to pay child support for her. It's hard to see him try to remove himself from the child he raised for 7 years, but I'm determined to fight for Lily's best interests. Despite the hurdles, I am relieved. For the first time in a long time, I believe I am doing what is best for both myself and Lily. I'm rediscovering aspects of myself that I let go during my marriage. I've resumed painting, which I used to enjoy but abandoned when life became too full with work and children. I know the path ahead will be difficult, but I am determined to create a bright future for myself and my daughter. I'll provide an update when there are substantial developments. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my previous update, and things have been tough to say the least. The divorce proceedings are underway, and Rob is fighting me every step of the way. He is fighting the custody arrangement, arguing that because Lily is not his biological daughter, he should not be required to pay child support for her, despite the fact that he has been her stepfather for 7 years, and has always claimed to see her as his own. The lawyer says this is a standard strategy for reducing financial commitments, but it doesn't make it any less painful. His kids, Jack and Tom, still live largely with him. Jack has become increasingly hostile to me and Lily. Last month, he declined to come for his planned weekend visit, claiming he didn't want to stay in that stupid beach house. When I tried to talk to him about it, he accused me of putting the house ahead of his family. It's evident that Rob has been feeding him his version of events, and I'm at a loss for how to dispute this narrative without involving Jack. Tom, on the other hand, appears torn. When he's here, he's cuddly, and appears to enjoy spending time with us. But the moment Rob takes him up, he withdraws. Last week he left his journal at our place, and while I didn't read it, I couldn't help but notice the word confused, in big letters on the open page. It kills my heart to see him struggle like this. Lily is struggling with the loss of her stepbrothers. She and Tom were quite close, and she misses having him around. I've attempted to make plans for them to spend time together without Rob or Jack around, but Rob always finds an excuse to cancel. Lily has been using her interests as a diversion. She joined the school drama club and has been painting on a mural in her room at the beach house. The incident escalated 2 weeks ago. It was Lily's birthday, and we arranged a small party at the beach house. Tom had agreed to visit, and Lily was eager to show him the mural she was working on. Rob called at the last minute to say he wasn't going to drop Tom off. His justification was flimsy, something about a last-minute soccer practice, and I could hear trepidation in his tone. Lily was devastated. In a fit of irritation, I called Rob and vented all of my rage and hurt. I informed him that he was being cruel and selfish by using the children as pawns in his game. I reminded him of all the times he'd promised to always be there for Lily. The father-daughter dances he'd gone to, the bedtime stories he'd told her. To my amazement, he broke down. Rob stated that he had been acting out of hurt and pride, and he was aware that he was harming his connection with the children. We had a long, honest talk for the first time in months. He admitted that he had been struggling financially. His business was not performing as well as he had led everyone to believe. Therefore, he saw the beach house as a solution to his difficulties. He also admitted to being insecure about his place in Lily's life, particularly as she became older and more independent. While I appreciate his candor, it does not remove the harm he has inflicted. We've agreed to pursue family counseling, not to reconcile, but to find a method to properly co-parent for the sake of our children. Our first session is scheduled for next week, and I am scared yet hopeful that it will help us find a way ahead. On a personal side, I've launched a modest internet business selling handmade jewelry. It's something I've always enjoyed as a hobby, and it's been a pleasant respite from the stress of my divorce. I've been using the sunroom at the beach house as a studio, and there's something relaxing about working with my hands while gazing out at the ocean. Lily has even assisted me with designing several things and maintaining our social media accounts. It's been a terrific way for us to bond while also giving her something positive to focus on. The beach cottage has been our haven. We now spend most of our weekends there, and I can see how much better Lily is doing. She's becoming more candid, discussing her emotions and anxieties about the future. Last weekend, as we were on the beach watching the sunset, she told me how proud she was of me for sticking up for myself. It meant more to me than words can explain. I realize we have a long road ahead of us, but I'm cautiously optimistic. If nothing else, this experience has taught me how strong Lily and I can be together. Whatever happens with Rob and the boys, I'm confident we'll be okay. Update 3. It has been 6 months since my last update, and I am pleased to say that things have finally begun to normalize. The divorce was finalized last month. In the end, Rob and I reached a deal without going to court. He's agreed that the beach house will remain mine, and we've negotiated a reasonable parenting arrangement for all 3 children. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I felt we'd never reach an agreement. But the family counseling sessions were quite beneficial. Speaking of family counseling, it's been quite beneficial. Dr. Anderson, our therapist, has given us tools to help us speak more effectively and work through our challenges. It has provided us with a secure forum to express our frustrations and establish common ground. Jack was initially resistant, rolling his eyes and responding in one word, but he's gradually warming up. In our most recent session, he apologized to Lily for his behavior over the previous year. It was a watershed moment, and I could see Lily's relief on her face. Tom has thrived under the new system. He divides his time equally between Rob's house and the beach house, and he appears happier and more relaxed than I have seen him in years. He joined a local surf club and spends hours in the ocean when he visits the beach house. It is lovely to see him discover his own interest. Lily has been incredibly resilient during this journey. She has really come into her own in the last 2 months. Her membership in the school theater club has given her more confidence, and she recently got the main role in the school play. She's met several new people through the club, and they frequently come to stay at the beach house on weekends. It's great to see her laughing and enjoying life again. My jewelry business has really taken off. What began as a distraction has evolved into a thriving small business. I've even been asked by a few local retailers to stock my items. Lily enjoys helping out, so we've converted the sunroom at the beach house into a full-fledged workshop. It's become a great bonding experience for us, working side by side and discussing our days. Rob and I are on good terms now. We aren't buddies, but we can have courteous chats about the kids without getting into an argument. He created his own business, a little landscaping company, which seemed to be doing well. He has been more constant with his time with the children, which has greatly improved their connections. Last weekend we held a large family supper at the beach house. All 3 children, Rob, and even my friend Margaret attended. It wasn't perfect, there were a few awkward moments. But it was refreshing to see everyone together without stress. We even got to giggle about some old family stories. It felt like a window into what our future might be like. Different from what I had anticipated, but not necessarily worse. I will not pretend that everything has been easy. There are still days when I'm overwhelmed or question my decisions. The divorce's legal bills have been a drag, and I'm still adjusting to doing everything on my own. But then I see Lily, how she's grown and how close we've gotten. And I know I made the right decision. The beach home, which was once a source of great contention, has now become a symbol of our resilience and future. It is more than just a piece of property. It's a house, full of new memories and beginnings. We've started a Friday night bonfire tradition on the beach, where we roast marshmallows and share stories. Last Monday, Jack voluntarily joined us for the first time. As I sit here on the porch, watching the sun set over the water, I get a sense of tranquility that I haven't had in years. The path forward isn't always apparent, and I'm confident we'll confront additional hurdles. But I am no longer frightened to confront them. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.